Chapter 2465. A young man walked in with big strides. He was very arrogant. Who else could it be but Yi Wuti? As the master of the ancient heavenly court, he naturally had the right to come. He had arrogantly snatched the 9th token, and had even called himself the 99 Supremes. This made many people present at the scene speechless. Yi Shiwen was also extremely speechless. How many years has it been? He hasn't changed at all. Yi Wuti, are you here to cause trouble? I won't let you go. Feng Zihao stepped forward and asked. Yi Wuti had come to support Yi Shiwen last time. He had caused the ancient Phoenix realm to lose face in front of everyone. As the pride of the ancient Phoenix realm, he was naturally very unhappy. It was just that he wasn't here last time. This time, he wouldn't let it go so easily. Cause trouble? Oh, I've been seen through. I'm here to cause trouble. Why? Bite me if you can. Yi Wuti said with a smile. Worst comes to worst. We'll just fight here. Feng Zihao's expression was unsightly. He had never met such a shameless fellow before. The dignity of an expert was probably nonsense in Yi Wuti's heart. If Yi Wuti were to say it, he would probably say that dignity was nothing. As long as he could achieve his goal, he wouldn't care what methods he used. The others also looked at Yi Wuti with interest. Compared to Yi Shiwen, Yi Wuti's reputation was much higher. Not to mention anything else, just by holding the tiger skin of the ancient heavenly court, who would dare to not give him face? In the past, no one knew about it. However, with the restoration of the ancient heavenly court, many ancient demon clans and organizations responded one after another. This made people know that the ancient heavenly court wasn't just an empty shell to scare people. It was a big tiger that could really bite people. However, he still dared to come at this time. It was beyond many people's expectations. Is that immoral person the master of the ancient heavenly court? Yi Wuti? What a scam! The image of the ancient heavenly court, the dignity of the ancient demon emperor, has been thrown away. Someone wailed in grief. He was one of the worshippers of the ancient demon emperors. Now that he saw that their successor was actually so shameless, he couldn't help but feel extremely depressed. What do you know? Don't underestimate Yi Wuti. A few years ago, a descendant of the Golden Crow clan caused trouble in the ancient celestial court. He wanted to take back the leadership of the ancient celestial court. In the end, he crushed the body of their so-called genius in front of everyone. He almost died. Someone in the know said disdainfully, Golden Crow clan? Isn't the Golden Crow clan extinct? Someone couldn't help but ask. Of course, it's not the purebred Golden Crow clan. They're all subspecies. There weren't many members of the Golden Crow clan back then. They only left some subspecies outside, like the Golden Feather Crow and the Sunbird. They're all subspecies. However, these people obviously had the wrong idea. They bullied him because he was young and wanted to take back the leadership of the ancient heavenly court. They're really courting death. That's true. If the ancient celestial court could be re-established, how could there not be one or two powerful figures? Those subspecies seem to be powerful figures, but their real strength is far inferior to the real Golden Crow clan. How dare they come to snatch the power of the ancient celestial court? They must be courting death. In other words, Yi Wuti entered the ancient heavenly court as an outsider. It's said that he obtained the inheritance of the Demon King. Some people even said that he once saw the Eastern Emperor Bell. That's why those ancient tribes recognized the ancient heavenly court that has been restored. So what's the point of bloodline? Obtaining the inheritance of the Demon King is the most important thing. That's why it's strange to see Yi Wuti here. Although the Golden Crow clan isn't as complicated as the Dragon and Phoenix clan, there are still many subspecies left behind. If these tribes unite to take back the leadership of the ancient heavenly court, it'll be a big problem. I didn't expect him to put down these things to fight for the husband of the Phoenix goddess. TSK, it's really unexpected. Don't you know? Yi Wuti and Yi Shiwen are good brothers. He doesn't want to fight for himself. He wants to wipe out all the opponents for Yi Shiwen. Someone in the know said, Yi Shiwen is lucky. Unfortunately, he's a coward. He actually didn't show up, someone said with complete disdain. Although they could understand that the experts that came this time were too terrifying, they still looked down on Yi Shiwen from the bottom of their hearts. Feng Zihao suppressed his anger and said, Yi Wudi, I hope you don't meddle. Even Yi Shiwen himself didn't come. Why do you have to go against our ancient phoenix realm? It's not your place to talk about what I do. Besides, even if I don't come, do you think you can eat everyone? That's too funny. Yi Wudi said coldly. Feng Zihao said coldly, You better not meet me later, or else what? You better pray that you don't meet me. Otherwise, I'll teach you how to be a person. I'll let you know what it means to be an expert in dealing with all kinds of disobedience. Yi Wudi said arrogantly. Feng Zihao was furious, but he didn't attack because he was very clear that Yi Wudi was deliberately provoking him. However, he couldn't attack because of this. Otherwise, it would be breaking the taboo of the clan. If he really couldn't find a suitable candidate, then he wouldn't let the goodies flow to others. Damn human, where are you? Only an angry voice could be heard. Yuan Hong appeared under the arena while holding a long rod in his hand. He was wrapped in a ball of light. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen. They were also very clear that the person who made Yuan Hong so angry was none other than Yi Shiwen. You're looking for me? Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Yes, you're dead. You actually dared to fool me. Yuan Hong said angrily. So what if I fool you? If you have the ability, then bite me. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Everyone's expression suddenly became strange. Wasn't this the conversation between Yi Wudi and Feng Zihao? You're courting death. Yuan Hong firmly held the iron rod. In the end, he didn't attack. He was very clear about where he was. If he didn't follow the rules, then he would cause trouble for the ancient Phoenix realm. If he came to cause trouble, then the ancient Phoenix realm wouldn't let him off easily. Wait a moment. I'll crush you bit by bit. You better pray that you don't meet me later. Otherwise, I'll teach you how to be a person. Do you know what it means to be an expert in dealing with all kinds of disobedience? I am, Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. This time, the others couldn't help but laugh. This was clearly a pirated version of Yi Wudi's words. However, they didn't know that even these words had been given to Yi Wudi by Yi Shiwen. He was the original. Yuan Hong's complexion changed between green and white. In his opinion, these people were clearly laughing at him. This was really intolerable. Yi Wudi also looked at Yi Shiwen suspiciously. It seemed a little strange. These words were used so skillfully. It didn't seem like Yi Shiwen had just learned them. Besides Yuan Hong, another person's complexion was also very ugly. It was Feng Zihao. He had been choked by Yi Wudi's words and had nothing to say. Now that Yi Shiwen had mentioned these words again, it was simply a slap to his face in front of everyone. Therefore, he secretly bore a grudge against Yi Shiwen. Since the top 10 have been selected, then let's begin. This round is the semifinals. The selection rules are like this. You'll draw 3 opponents, and the final result will be determined. The winner of all 3 will enter the finals. At this time, Feng Nanshan's voice appeared high up in the sky. What if the results are about the same? Diamond would open his mouth and asked, buzzing continuously. If the results are about the same, then the total time used to win will be calculated. The one who won will advance. Feng Nantian said. Everyone calculated in their hearts. This meant that not only would they have to win all 3 battles, but they would also have to use enough time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be safe. If it was a sequential battle, then this situation shouldn't occur. If it was a sequential battle, at most, only 2 people could win all 3 battles. Then it wouldn't be so troublesome. If there are no questions, the first round will officially begin. As soon as Feng Nantian gave the order, rays of light immediately emerged on the arena. Everyone was transported into a huge arena. This was a huge arena that was specially built for battles. There were marks of time everywhere. Many places had been severely weathered. However, since the ancient Phoenix realm had sent them here, then it should be a place that could withstand the battle of God level. Very soon, his first opponent was also transported in. It wasn't Yuan Hong, but Xue Xiaohua. Xue Xiaohua was dressed in a luxurious robe, and he looked at Yi Shiwen with his head held high. Just when Yi Shiwen thought that he would say something, he saw Xue Xiaohua suddenly stride forward. The ground shrank to an inch, and he suddenly appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. A long saber instantly appeared in his hand. Countless saber principles turned into talismans and twined around it. With a terrifying saber light, he ruthlessly slashed out. Heaven's derivation saber technique. It was another earth-shattering saber technique. Many people who were watching the battle were instantly shocked. This Xue Xiaohua actually attacked without saying a word. He was also a ruthless person. Yi Shiwen's reaction wasn't slow at all. He turned into a ball of lightning with a flickering thunder step and fled far away. His gaze toward Xue Xiaohua was also a bit more solemn. The first impression that Xue Xiaohua gave him was that of a very showy, rich young master. He looked like an empty, showy young master. He wasn't worthy of vigilance at all. Yi Shiwen thought that he would give a long speech. Who would have thought that he was the most ruthless one? He was ruthless and decisive. It was completely different from the showy appearance that he had deliberately displayed before. He was too scheming. If it was someone else, they might have suffered on the spot. However, the speed of his flickering thunderstep was too fast, and he could use it more. Xue Xiaohua was also a bit surprised. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to be able to use it more at the last moment. This speed was already much faster than what he had expected. However, he didn't show any expression. Even if he only relied on his own strength, he wasn't afraid of anyone. He was the strongest person, the young master of the Heaven Evolution sect. You have some cultivation, but this is as far as you can go. Chapter 2466. Xue Xiaohua's strength was obviously not an undeserved reputation. In an instant, his whole person stood proudly, and his aura suddenly rose by several levels, instantly bursting out. In an instant, he was like a god that had existed since ancient times, directly attacking from the other end of the river of time. Above his head, bursts of mist spewed out, turning into a huge world, expanding in all directions. Such a vision was really shocking. This is the Sky Spill world. Legend has it that the ancient Sky Spill sect's leader once used this supreme power to evolve a world to comprehend the Great Path. The Sky Spill world is an extremely difficult magical power to cultivate, but once it is cultivated, I'm afraid that the future is limitless. It can even directly transform the Sky Spill world into a divine kingdom. In that case, it will save a lot of effort. With this strength alone, I'm afraid that Xue Xiaohua is not far from the Sage realm. Many people were shocked. Xue Xiaohua's move was really amazing. In front of my Sky Spill world, no one can stand. Xue Xiaohua roared and really launched an attack. Although he could suddenly kill, he believed that there was no problem with his strength, and he was not inferior to anyone in a head-on fight. This Sky Spill world turned into a domain, covering the entire arena. In the Sky Spill world, everything between heaven and earth was constantly evolving, and life was constantly being born. With every life that was born, Xue Xiaohua's strength was constantly increasing, as if he was absorbing the power of these life forms. Yi Shiwen stood still, as if he did not see it. This is not good. This Xue Xiaohua's Sky Spill world is very difficult to deal with. The more time he is given, the more terrifying it becomes. In the end, Xue Xiaohua doesn't even need to do anything. Just by relying on the power of the Sky Spill world, he can suppress that deadly scholar. A sharp-eyed person outside said. The Sky Spill world of the Sky Spill sect was famous, and many people knew about it. They did not dare to say that they understood the essence, but they were very familiar with the general horror. Xue Xiaohua saw that Yi Shiwen did not move and felt a little strange. This kind of behavior looked very strange. Are you scared, silly? Xue Xiaohua couldn't help but ask. He was too lazy to ask, but everything in front of him was too strange. Yi Shiwen didn't move at all, as if he didn't care at all. This made a kind of uneasiness emerge in Xue Xiaohua's heart, and it became more and more intense. I'm waiting for your Sky Spill world to finish evolving. Yi Shiwen faintly said, Sky Spill world. What a great name. If I read it all, wouldn't it be a pity? Xue Xiaohua's face immediately fell. The other party didn't put him in his eyes at all. He even dared to say that he would wait for his Sky Spill world to complete its evolution. The crowd that was watching the battle from the outside was in an uproar as well. This life-stealing scholar sure was arrogant. Wasn't he afraid that the wind would cut his tongue? For the Sky Spill world to have such an awe-inspiring reputation, it wasn't just boasting. Rather, it had been forged through countless battles. He actually wanted to see the Sky Spill world activate to its peak. This was simply insane. At that time, Shueishao's strength would simply multiply. The difficulty would be unimaginable. What did he have to rely on? Yi Shiwen didn't care about the crowd's surprise. On the contrary, he calmed his heart and began to comprehend the process of the Sky Spill world's evolution. It was said that when the Sky Spill world evolved to its peak, it could really form a world. It wasn't a fake, but a real world. It could even directly form a divine kingdom. What an amazing technique. Yi Shiwen was also very interested in this technique. If he could also evolve it, it would be much easier for him to condense a divine kingdom in the future and enter the Sage Realm. It could be considered as preparing for a rainy day. If it were someone else, they would probably only be able to do as Yi Shiwen had said. They would only be able to observe the horrors of the Sky Spill world. But Yi Shiwen was different. He constantly operated the mysterious space and analyzed this supreme magical technique. He remembered all the details of the analysis and began to faintly evolve it in his own divine body. Shueishaohua probably never dreamed that Yi Shiwen could actually do this. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen could actually truly analyze his Sky Spill world. However, he was provoked by Yi Shiwen's words. He was also determined to teach Yi Shiwen a huge lesson. Originally, the Sky Spill world had to be evolved halfway, because the opponent would not give you the opportunity to evolve it completely unless you were crazy. Now that he had encountered such a psychopath, it was just right. He would let everyone see the horror of the Sky Spill world and how terrible it was when the Sky Spill world evolved to its peak. As for whether or not others would discover his trump cards, he was not worried. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks were useless. The evolution of the Sky Spill world was getting faster and faster, and Yi Shiwen's analysis was also getting faster and faster. In his eyes, there seemed to be a world being born and destroyed. When he opened his eyes, the world existed. When he closed his eyes, the world was destroyed. This was an extremely terrifying realm, and also an extremely terrifying magical technique. In his divine body, it was constantly evolving and constantly rushing out. Finally, the Sky Spill world had evolved to its peak. The restraint on Yi Shiwen had reached its peak. In this world that was like a real world, Yi Shiwen clearly felt the repulsion of the world power. This was an indescribable feeling. It was a feeling of rejection. It was very uncomfortable and an inexplicable pressure. This was far more terrifying than any domain that Yi Shiwen had ever felt before. This was also the reason why the Sky Spill world was known by countless people. It was extremely terrifying. Well, next, it's your turn to die. Shueishaohua's face showed a bit of a sneer. His expression was a bit ferocious. He didn't care about this. Yi Shiwen seemed to be from the martial sect, and his background was not small. He only had one feeling, and that was that he wanted Yi Shiwen to die without a burial place. Yi Shiwen actually dared to look down on him like this. Walala! There was a loud sound of breaking through the air. In midair, the power of heaven and earth directly manifested into a chain that caught Yi Shiwen. In an instant, the world was turned upside down and the mountains and rivers changed color. Is this all you've got? I'm really disappointed. At this time, Yi Shiwen finally moved. His body instantly spewed out countless power of thunder. These power of thunder turned into thunder dragons in midair, wrapping around his body like a thunder armor. When these captured chains approached Yi Shiwen's divine body, some of the thunder dragons opened their mouths and swallowed them. They were unable to do anything to Yi Shiwen. The thunder technique resisted the power of heaven and earth. It was an earth-shattering collision. Many people outside couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they saw this scene. There was no need to mention how terrifying the Sky Spill world was. It was as if it could pass through the screen and crush their bodies. But even so, it was useless against Yi Shiwen. It was completely swallowed up by Yi Shiwen's thunder technique. It was completely incomparable to the situation where they imagined that they could suppress Yi Shiwen with just the power of the world. Their thoughts were too simple. Only at this level? It's too easy for me to break it. This is indeed a very powerful technique, but you are still far from it. Yi Shiwen sneered and said. The power of thunder suddenly burst out of his body and instantly turned into a sea of thunder and lightning. The entire arena was shrouded in this sea of thunder and lightning. Countless thunder dragons were constantly bobbing up and down in this sea of thunder and lightning. They were swimming freely. If Shui Xiaohua was evolving a world just now, evolving a prosperous world, then Yi Shiwen was completely destroying the world. At this time, he stood in a world like a legendary god of destruction, carrying endless thunder and lightning to destroy this dirty world. At this moment, it was as if the morale of the ancient times had returned. One side was creating the world, and the other side was destroying the world. These were two completely different systems, and it was impossible for them to have any compatibility problems. Shui Xiaohua saw that his sky spill world did not seem to be able to do anything to the other party. It seemed that the other party had repeatedly found the flaws of his world. Step by step, every step was aimed at the weak points. But only he knew that although he could evolve the sky spill world, it wasn't perfect. He didn't have that kind of terrifying skill, but how could others know, let alone find the flaws of his world? Even the people in the Sky Spill Church who also cultivated the Sky Spill world could not see the flaws at a glance. How could an outsider like him see it? However, he didn't know that Yi Shiwen had already deduced his Sky Spill world just now. As long as he wanted to, he could evolve a Sky Spill world in an instant. Therefore, Yi Shiwen had long understood the various mysteries of the Sky Spill world. He was even clearer than Shui Xiaohua. Naturally, he could see the loopholes in his Sky Spill world at a glance. All the places he walked were the flaws of the Sky Spill world. In this way, he could minimize the pressure from the Sky Spill world. Therefore, the seemingly powerful Sky Spill world also had such weaknesses. However, such weaknesses were not considered weaknesses because apart from Yi Shiwen, who could see the weaknesses of the Sky Spill world at a glance. You are courting death. Shui Xiaohua could no longer hold it in at this time, and instantly attacked. It was the same Sky Spill Saber technique, but the Saber Light was much stronger than before. Although the Sky Spill world could not suppress Yi Shiwen. In the complete Sky Spill world, Shui Xiaohua's strength had improved a lot. This was his home ground, and he was confident that he could suppress all opponents. The biggest mistake you made today was to allow me to completely evolve the Sky Spill world. In order to repay you, I will not kill you today. I will only cripple your martial arts. Ha! Shui Xiaohua said in a controlled manner. Shua! The saber light shocked the sky. Chapter 2467. At the same time, Shui Xiaohua's entire body rushed forward, and Yi Shiwen's Thunder Dragon halberd also appeared in his hand, slamming into it. Boom! There was a huge roar, and the void was torn apart. The two were like ancient celestial emperors fighting, and suddenly, both sides were evenly matched. The two were evenly matched, but in the eyes of many, this was the real key. Shui Xiaohua, under the blessing of the Sky Spill world, still can't take down the life-stealing scholar. What is going on? After the explanation just now, even those who did not understand were very clear at this time about the horror of the Sky Spill world. Once it evolved, one's strength would almost double, and it was very terrifying. Yi Shiwen completely let the Sky Spill world take shape, and now he should be in a difficult situation, but he was still able to fight Shui Xiaohua to a draw, which was enough to attract attention. This life-stealing scholar is stronger than I thought. His thunder technique is so terrifying. The big shots of the ancient Phoenix world also looked towards Yi Shiwen on the cloud platform. They had been more optimistic about Shui Xiaohua. After all, none of these people wasn't an expert. So, how could they not see who was strong and who was weak? One side was at the peak of the Eternal Realm, and the other was only at the middle stage of the Eternal Realm. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Yi Shiwen's method of obtaining the token at the beginning was also a bit of a trick, more or less a sneak attack, so in the subconscious of many people, Yi Shiwen was not qualified. In a fair fight, he should not be Shui Xiaohua's opponent, but now he gave them a completely unexpected feeling. Shui Xiaohua failed to take down Yi Shiwen in one blow, and a little anger appeared on his face. It was really a shame that he could not take down a middle stage of the Eternal Realm in one blow. It's useless in the Sky Spill world. No matter what you do, you can't get rid of the shackles. You will definitely be defeated because of my injury. Shui Xiaohua roared and raised his long saber again, turning it into a sky full of saber light. If one looked carefully, one could see golden talismans. These talismans had great power, and they were refined by him for many years. Now, they completely crushed Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen knew that Shui Xiaohua's strength was very strong and was infinitely close to the legendary Sage Realm. It had to be said that he had already reached the peak. Even in the peak of the Eternal Realm, it was enough to sweep away. There were really not many who could be his opponent. If he were to fight 100 years ago, he would definitely not be Shui Xiaohua's opponent, but it was different now. Everything was different. He had encountered the current Yi Shiwen. After decades of cultivation, his thunder technique had reached an earth-shattering level. The power of thunder on Yi Shiwen's body transformed into a thunder dragon and roared unceasingly. He held the thunder dragon halberd in his hand and met the attack head-on. Boom! Both sides clashed for the third time, each time more terrifying than the last. Neither side dared to hold back, nor did they have any intention of holding back. They wanted to kill each other. Killing intent abruptly soared into the sky. The comprehensions of both sides turned into talismans and devoured each other. Two huge domains crazily collided, and in this arena, one could see two world-shaking scenes of creation and destruction. However, even in such an intense battle, this arena did not move at all. It was indeed a precious treasure. Although it looked seriously weathered, in fact, it still had a power that ordinary treasures could not compare to. At the same time, everyone was also shocked. This was only the third collision, but it was already so intense. Both sides did not have any intention of testing each other, and once they started, they attacked with killing intent, showing no mercy at all. Shui Xiaohua is also feeling the pressure. Otherwise, with his advantage in terms of cultivation level, he would rarely make such a move, even when facing someone at the same peak of the Eternal Realm. He actually went all out. This life-stealing scholar is really extraordinary. This life-stealing scholar is from the martial sect. I don't know which branch he is from, but it is not surprising that there are a few freaks from the martial sect. After someone explained, everyone actually found that thinking about it made them feel much better. Yes, it was not surprising that there were monsters from the martial sect. Didn't you see that Jiren Wang? He was simply terrifying to the extreme. He was just a clone, but it was enough to suppress 10 heavens and 8 earths. Both sides are not ordinary people. This is a wonderful battle, someone exclaimed. 5 battles unfolded at the same time. Any one of these 10 people would attract the attention of countless people wherever they appeared. Now that they were fighting at the same time, even if their primordial spirits were split to watch, there was still a feeling of dizziness. Their fight was too terrifying, and their speed was too fast. Even if there was only a slight pause, the most exciting part would be skipped. In such a battle, Yi Shiwen's cold and ruthless voice came out. I have already wasted a lot of time watching your Sky Spill world. Now I don't have time to waste with you. So, I will defeat you. Yi Shiwen's words suddenly caused an uproar. He actually thought that he was wasting time just now, and why did he let Shui Xiaohua evolve the Sky Spill world? After all, the 3 battles this time weren't just about obtaining complete victory. It also depended on time. So, this forced everyone to use all their strength to defeat their opponents, and they didn't dare to hold back any trump cards. If they were slower than their opponents, then it would truly be too late for regrets. Everyone now had a feeling that if he had not evolved the Sky Spill world just now, Shui Xiaohua would undoubtedly be much easier to deal with. What the hell was he doing? Was he too confident in himself, or was he really out of his mind? Shui Xiaohua only felt that his face was ugly. Yi Shiwen's words clearly did not put him in his eyes. In addition, with the blessing of the Sky Spill world, there was no way for him to defeat Yi Shiwen. It was really a great shame. Then come on, let me see. Shui Xiaohua was furious. His feet moved faster, and the saber light gathered in his hand became even brighter. There was a kind of supreme saber intent being guided out. He also wanted to defeat Yi Shiwen in a short time. Not only to defeat the opponent, but also in the shortest time possible. Yi Shiwen's body suddenly erupted with amazing thunder and lightning. He suddenly stepped out of the sea of thunder and lightning. Behind him, the thunder and lightning even formed a pair of wings. Suddenly, his whole body swooped down. The thunder dragon halberd in his hand seemed to have turned into a real thunder dragon, rushing towards Xue Xiaohua. Everyone held their breaths as they watched this scene. Everyone knew how terrifying this attack was. Both sides probably couldn't wait any longer. They had to defeat each other no matter what. Boom! There was a terrible collision sound. The power of thunder and the saber light collapsed in the sky, forming a terrible storm that blocked all probing. No one could see what was happening inside. Then they only heard a muffled sound, and a figure flew out of the storm. Everyone looked over, and it was none other than Xue Xiaohua. How could it be him? Everyone exclaimed. Although they had already prepared themselves, when they saw this scene, everyone was still completely shocked. Yi Shiwen had really blasted Xue Xiaohua away with a single blow, completely occupying the upper hand. Some people with sharp eyes saw that Yi Shiwen's Thunder Path incarnation had integrated into his body, making his power instantly burst. He integrated the Thunder Path incarnation. No wonder he is so terrifying. Everyone suddenly realized that Yi Shiwen's thunder technique was so tyrannical. It was impossible to say that he could not condense the Thunder Path incarnation. It was just that they did not expect him to be able to successfully integrate it in such a short time and burst out such amazing combat power. Whether it was Yi Shiwen or Xue Xiaohua, it seemed that they had reached the limit that this level could reach. The gap in strength was not fatal. The key was the various means to see who was more powerful. Deadly Scholar. Xue Xiaohua roared angrily. He had never suffered such a big loss. It was a great shame and humiliation. He was blasted away with one blow. He had always done this to others. No one had ever been able to do this to him. The saber light in his hand was even more blazing and terrifying. It was engraved with a mysterious rune, exuding a kind of earth-shattering power. All of a sudden, it slashed towards Yi Shiwen. And just at this time, before everyone could react, an iron halberd instantly cut through the sky from the void. The crescent tip of the halberd directly burst out in astonishing light, directly chopping down towards Xue Xiaohua's head, trying to hack him to death. Xue Xiaohua's attack also instantly changed from an attack to a defense. His deep foundation was suddenly revealed. Boom! The saber light and the halberd light collided directly, and it was earth-shattering. If it was in a small world, it would have shattered the world on the spot. This was a terrifying power that was close to the Sage Realm. Boom! Xue Xiaohua's body, which had just stabilized, was blasted away again in an instant. The collision of this blow caused cracks to appear on his arm, and blood splattered out. At this moment, Xue Xiaohua finally realized what kind of mistake he had made before. He had always thought that the most terrifying thing about this deadly scholar was his thunder technique cultivation. The fact that he could condense the thunder technique incarnation was the best proof. But now he knew what was wrong. The most terrifying thing about this guy was not his thunder technique at all, but his physical body. Xue Xiaohua's realm had completely suppressed his opponent, but he was completely at a disadvantage in the physical collision. It went without saying how terrifying this was. It was just that he did not have a chance to speak at this moment. Yi Shiwen's next wave of attack had already rushed over. The Thunder Dragon halberd in his hands did not have any technique at all. The only commendable thing was that it was powerful and heavy. It was a terrifying power that could blast the world into pieces with one blow. Boom! He had not yet recovered and barely managed to resist, but he was blasted away again. This time, even his entire arm turned into a mist of blood. Chapter 2468. Yi Shiwen's attacks were infused with the power of thunder, and each attack was more terrifying than the last. The power of thunder crazily destroyed the muscles on Xue Xiaohua's body, causing his muscles to collapse all of a sudden. One of his arms exploded in an instant, and the severe pain made his entire face pale in an instant. He was drenched in cold sweat. His whole body flew out again. Not only was his arm broken, but more importantly, he only felt that his entire body's internal organs were about to be crushed by a huge force. What kind of terrifying power was this? He looked at Yi Shiwen with disbelief in his eyes. Was this really a human being? Was he not a monster? As far as he knew, there did not seem to be such a powerful physique among humans. It was simply too terrifying. Don't you go too far. Terrifying spiritual power constantly erupted from Xue Xiaohua's body. Every cell in his body was evolving into a world, and the power of the world was all condensed and gathered in his body. He actually wanted to use this sky spill world to integrate his martial arts incarnation into it. He also had a martial arts incarnation, but he would not take it out unless it was the most crucial moment. He had originally wanted to keep it as a trump card, which he might be able to use in the finals. Who knew that the first match would be so miserable? The first match had already put him in such a sorry state. Do you think I will give you this chance? Yi Shiwen's figure was like a bolt of lightning, constantly flashing in the sky. Every time he flashed, he would get closer to Xue Xiaohua. Almost in an instant, he had once again arrived in front of Xue Xiaohua. Behind him, a thunder chain almost splashed out. Behind him, it was like a peacock spreading its tail. Many thunder spells suddenly broke out and blasted out in an instant. Boom! Xue Xiaohua flew again. His chest was badly mutilated, and he did not know how many of his bones were broken by the power of thunder. He was not willing to give up. He had not really brought out his final strength. This deadly scholar is so strong, and he is ruthless. He is definitely not soft-hearted. He did not give Xue Xiaohua a chance to integrate martial arts incarnation. Someone exclaimed. Everyone could clearly see that Xue Xiaohua wanted to integrate martial arts incarnation, but it was suddenly defeated by Yi Shiwen. Such a will could not be said to not be tenacious, nor was he someone who would be cruel and merciless. In the eyes of everyone, Xue Xiaohua had become a sandbag, constantly being blasted away by Yi Shiwen in the sky, and he could not even land. It was simply terrifying. Yi Shiwen had the advantage of being one step ahead, and he used his speed to turn this advantage into a complete advantage, constantly using Xue Xiaohua as a sandbag, hanging him in midair. Aren't you very arrogant? Didn't you want to cripple my martial arts? Then let me see. Yi Shiwen's arrogant voice resounded from the field. His voice was somewhat relaxed and at ease. Obviously, the situation was completely under his control, so he didn't need to worry at all. In fact, he didn't even need to use his full strength. Xue Xiaohua lost the initiative and now completely became a sandbag. I can't accept this. I haven't even used my martial Dao incarnation. Seeing that he was about to be defeated, Xue Xiaohua couldn't help but roar crazily. Originally, most of his insolence was a disguise to deceive others. He was very scheming, but now all his pride had been completely defeated by Yi Shiwen. He could only constantly roar to express his current mood. I also want to be your Sky Spill World's incarnation, but I'm afraid there's no time. I don't have time to waste on you. After Yi Shiwen blasted Xue Xiaohua away again, a Thunder Dragon halberd appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. He swung the halberd. In an instant, countless thunderbolts splashed out like immortal lights. In an instant, they turned into a Thunder Dragon and fiercely stared at Xue Xiaohua. Boom! Xue Xiaohua's body ferociously slammed into the arena with a loud bang. The impact had actually caused the arena to shatter into pieces. It must be known that this arena had been continuously reinforced by the seniors of the ancient Phoenix realm. The intense battle just now hadn't caused any damage to the arena. But now, the arena had actually been smashed into pieces by a single strike. Everyone felt a toothache just by looking at it. If it fell on their bodies, they would probably be in so much pain that they wanted to die. However, at this time, everyone was no longer paying attention to Xue Xiaohua. His body had already been soaked in blood and was bleeding profusely. Yi Shiwen's Thunder Dragon halberd firmly nailed him to the ground, and he himself stood in midair like an ancient great emperor. In the eyes of everyone, he was extremely terrifying. This person's Thunder Dao cultivation has reached an incredible level. At least in the eternal realm, It is almost difficult to find someone who can stand shoulder to shoulder with him, let alone surpass him. The Deadly Scholar. From now on, his name will also become one of the names on the list of the major forces. I didn't expect that such a peerless figure like Xue Xiaohua would actually be defeated. Moreover, he was defeated by such an almost unknown person. Yi Shiwen stepped on the void step by step and walked down. Then, he walked to Xue Xiaohua's side and pulled out the Thunder Dragon halberd. A mass of light descended from the sky, and Xue Xiaohua was teleported away. There was no doubt that Yi Shiwen had won this match. As for Xue Xiaohua, he went to the side to heal his injuries. For an Eternal Realm expert, unless he really killed his opponent, he could still recover. Of course, his vitality would definitely be damaged. After that, he would definitely need to replenish a lot of heavenly treasures. This was not a problem that Yi Shiwen needed to worry about. It was already very good that he did not kill his opponent. He took a look. He was the third person to defeat his opponent. He was not considered the last, nor was he the fastest. The first person was Ji Renwang. He still felt that this person was unfathomable. Until now, there was no way to really find out his depth. It could almost be said that he won the first match without any pressure. It was even easier than Yi Shiwen. His opponent was Corpse Hidden. Corpse Hidden did not use too much strength to defeat his opponent before. He did not even come out of his coffin. However, in the battle with Ji Renwang, it could be said that he used all kinds of means. He used all kinds of terrifying methods of the Corpse King. Heaven and earth changed. However, he was still completely suppressed by Ji Renwang. It seemed that Ji Renwang had the means and magical power to suppress the corpse transformation. Seeing Yi Shiwen's gaze, his face revealed a somewhat inexplicable smile. Although they were separated by different arenas, it was not prohibited to watch each other. However, this was obviously a privilege for those who finished early. The earlier they finished, the more things they could see, and the more useful they would be. The second was none other than Ao Chaozong. His opponent was none other than Ao Chaozong. His opponent was none other than the Vajra Wood. Both of them engaged in a great hand-to-hand battle. Both of them were existences that cultivated their physical bodies to the extreme. Ao Chaozong himself was a supreme genius of the Dragon Clan who specialized in his physical body. Diamond Wood was also a very hard wood. It was extraordinary. The battle between both of them ended with Ao Chaozong's victory. Although he looked a bit embarrassed, Yi Shiwen's intuition told him that Ao Chaozong had not used his full strength. Although Diamond Wood was powerful, it was unable to force Ao Chaozong to use his true strength. However, he was having a headache now. He was only ranked third. Only 2 people would win the last round. It seemed that he could not give up after this. As for the other 2 people who were still fighting, one was the young Kuan Peng and the other was Yuan Hong. Both of them had transformed into their true forms. The battle between an extremely terrifying bird and a violent ape that could wreak havoc in the heavens and earth was constantly exciting. Both races were very powerful races. Needless to say, the Kuan Peng was the leader of the 10 great vicious birds and the descendant of the ancient demon master. However, Yuan Hong had an extraordinary origin as well. He was one of the 4 ancient chaotic monkeys. This race was very powerful. Although they were few in number, they were not weak. Up until now, he had not been able to defeat his opponent. Both sides were enough to shock everyone. The young Kuan Peng had come in his true form, but he had only cultivated for a short period of time. Everyone could see that. However, with his extraordinary talent, he had already broken through to this stage. On the other side, Yuan Hong was not in his best condition. This was only a clone. Therefore, this battle was particularly interesting. On the other side, the battle between Yi Wudi and Feng Zihao was in full swing. Originally, both of them had a grudge against each other. Everyone had thought that Yi Shiwen hadn't appeared. So, Yi Shiwen's good brother had been regarded as Yi Shiwen's representative. And now, he had been drawn to fight against Feng Zihao in the first match. It was hard to say whether there was something fishy going on. Clearly, the ancient Phoenix realm was very confident that they could defeat Yi Wudi in the first battle. However, they did not expect that Yi Wudi would be so much more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. Yi Wudi had only recently become a god. and Feng Zihao had become a god tens of thousands of years ago. The two were not on the same level. Now that they could not defeat him, Yi Wudi naturally became anxious. The battle became even more intense. Yi Wudi was at a slight disadvantage. Tens of thousands of years of cultivation gave Feng Zihao a slight advantage. Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. If he had participated in this battle with his true form, the one to fight Feng Zihao would not have been Yi Wudi, but himself. However, the two were still fighting. It was hard to say who would win in the end. There was no obvious difference in strength between the two sides. Both sides' inheritances were extremely impressive. Feng Zihao's inheritance from the ancient Phoenix realm had never been broken since the era of the Phoenix ancestor. Yi Wudi was not bad either. His various techniques had the shadow of the ancient demon emperor. Neither side gave way. Yi Shiwen watched for a while and could not help but laugh. This guy is actually using someone else as a stepping stone, a whetstone. He finally saw that Yi Wudi was also planning to use Feng Zihao as a whetstone. Others might not understand Yi Wudi, but he did. This is a little interesting. Chapter 2469. Compared to Feng Zihao's tens of thousands of years of cultivation, Yi Wudi's skills were undoubtedly much weaker. They weren't even on the same level. But Yi Wudi could fight with Feng Zihao. It was normal for him to be at a disadvantage. Feng Zihao, who had few opponents in his generation, couldn't do anything to Yi Wudi. That was the problem in itself. But compared to Feng Zihao, Yi Wudi's biggest advantage was that he hadn't been cultivating for long, so he had a lot of room for improvement. It could be seen in a short time that Feng Zihao hadn't made much progress, but Yi Wudi was constantly getting stronger. His strength was also increasing bit by bit. This was the momentum of a reversal. Now, only the two sides hadn't decided a winner. But soon, the first to be decided was Yuan Hong and Kuanping. Both were fierce beasts. Once they fought, the sky would fall and the earth would crack. But in the end, Yuan Hong won. Kuanping's bloodline was very powerful, but in terms of age, it wasn't even a fraction of Yuan Hong's age. There was also a huge difference in experience. The fact that Xiao Chun was able to last until now had already shocked many people. This was especially so for Yuan Hong, who had an ugly expression on his face. Against a junior, Xiao Chun had actually defeated him with just a single move. Although it wasn't his real body, it was still embarrassing enough. At least, it was so for him. He only won by one move. If they fought to the death, the result would be hard to say. Everyone was well aware of the situation as well. Therefore, even though Kuan-Pong was defeated, everyone still thought highly of him. He was too young. Even if his opponent wasn't his real body, it wasn't a disgrace. Moreover, if he was given tens of thousands of years, it would be hard to say who would win. Young Kuan-Pong, on the other hand, did not have too many emotions. Ever since he knew that Yi Shiwen had arrived, he had let go of his worries. He did not have too many thoughts and did not insist. Otherwise, he would definitely fight to the death with Yuan Hong. Now, winning or losing was no longer his first concern. After young Kuan-Ping was defeated, everyone's eyes fell on the last match. The battle between Yi Wudi and Feng Zihao had entered an even more intense stage. Yi Wudi continued to absorb battle experience. Perhaps he hadn't fought many experts of this level, so he was at a loss at first. However, he was improving very quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Just when everyone thought that the battle between the two would continue, a bell suddenly rang out from Yi Wudi's body, instantly defeating the unprepared Feng Zihao. Everyone was stunned. They never thought that Yi Wudi would defeat Feng Zihao in such a way. That bell sound, could it be the Eastern Emperor bell? Someone gasped and said. Rumor had it that someone had actually used the Eastern Emperor bell. That was why the restoration of the ancient heavenly court was so smooth, and why so many ancient tribes and powers acknowledged the existence of the ancient heavenly court. However, that was only a legend. No one had actually seen it. Moreover, no one thought that Yi Wudi would actually bring the Eastern Emperor bell out. That was an important treasure of the ancient heavenly court, and it should be in the depths of the ancient heavenly court. If it was used here, it would be too wasteful. It was like using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. It can't be. For this martial arts competition, he even brought the Eastern Emperor bell. Isn't he afraid that the ancient Phoenix realm will take it away? Someone said quietly. There was no need to mention the fame of the Eastern Emperor bell in the heavens and earth. However, it had disappeared a long time ago. Therefore, many people had only heard of it and had never seen it before. Later on, there were many forces that used the name of the ancient heavenly court to swindle people. However, none of them succeeded. That was because they did not have the most important Eastern Emperor bell. Although no one knew where they had obtained a bit of inheritance, they were unable to obtain the recognition of everyone. The Eastern Emperor bell played a huge role in Yi Wudi's rapid recognition as the master of the ancient heavenly court. No, that's not right. That's not the Eastern Emperor bell. It's just a talisman condensed by the Eastern Emperor bell. It has a part of the Eastern Emperor bell's power, but it's not the real Eastern Emperor bell. Feng Nantian said regretfully. Just now, the outcome of the battle had been decided. His first reaction was not to check the extent of Feng Ziheo's injuries, but to check Yi Wudi's situation. It was the Eastern Emperor bell. Who wouldn't be tempted by it? The might of the Eastern Emperor bell was boundless. If this Dao tool wanted to leave in other places, who would be able to stop it? However, this was the ancient Phoenix realm. It wasn't impossible for it to stop anyone in the ancient Phoenix realm. Using various secret techniques, it was still possible to keep the Eastern Emperor bell. There was no need to mention the importance of the Eastern Emperor bell. If the ancient Phoenix realm could have another clan guarding treasure, then the luck of the ancient Phoenix realm would increase by a lot. Who would dare to look down on the ancient Phoenix realm? The reason why the Emperor clan, Ji family, was so powerful was because they had a lot of Dao tools. They had so many emperors, far surpassing the other powers. The reason why the martial sect was so powerful was also because they had two supreme Dao tools. These were precedents. Even if they had a falling out with the ancient heavenly court in the end, so what? Without the Dao tools, the ancient heavenly court was a toothless tiger. He had nothing to be afraid of. Unfortunately, in the end, he also saw that Yi Wudi had only brought the Eastern Emperor Bell Wave's talisman. It was considered a trump card, but it did not have the Eastern Emperor Bell that he had been looking forward to. Yi Wudi still had basic rationality. He did not lose his rationality. What a pity. However, this Feng Ziheo was defeated. He was defeated by this damned Yi Wudi. Next time, let Yi Wudi deal with Ji Renwang. Feng Nantian ordered. Just as Yi Shiwen had guessed, such an important matter. How could Feng Nantian allow it to be out of his control? Everything was under his control. Even the opponents of these 3 rounds were under his control. Otherwise, how could Yi Wudi and Feng Ziheo meet so coincidentally? He wanted Feng Ziheo to teach Yi Wudi a lesson. At the same time, in his opinion, Yi Wudi, who had cultivated for the shortest time, seemed to be the easiest to deal with. Even though Yi Wudi's background was not small, there were always strong and weak. Even a persimmon had to be picked on. Who knew that Yi Wudi actually had such a trump card? He has already used his trump card once. I don't believe that he can defeat Ji Renwang with this again. Yi Wudi's inheritance is no small matter. However, Ji Renwang's inheritance is not the slightest bit inferior to the inheritance of martial sect. Even our ancient Phoenix realm has to look sideways. Feng Nantian said coldly. After the first round ended, there was a break for a while. Then, the second round finally began. Yi Shiwen was aware of the problem. Under normal circumstances, each round should start immediately. In this case, the earlier the round ended, the less the loss and the more cost-effective it would be. However, the first round didn't do this. He could also guess the reason. It was because of Feng Ziheo. Feng Ziheo was not only the last one to finish, but he had also been seriously injured by the talisman puppet of the Eastern Emperor Bell. This was to buy time for Feng Ziheo. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care about it because he had absolute confidence that no one could stop him from reaching the top. No one could stop him from taking away Huang Menghan. Soon, his second opponent was teleported over. This person was none other than Corpse Hidden. A coffin was engraved with an extremely dark talisman. It was exuding a very strange yin qi. In an instant, countless yin qi rushed out from between the heaven and the earth. All of these yin qi emerged, and covered the entire space between the heaven and the earth. Another domain expanded in a flash, and the strength of the hidden corpse suddenly erupted. It seemed that the hidden corpse couldn't wait any longer after losing the first round. So, he wanted to win this round. A dead man like you also wants to compete for the championship of the martial arts competition for a spouse? What a joke. Yi Shiwen coldly said. He didn't have a good impression of these people. It didn't matter whether they were forced to deal with him or not. He didn't have a good impression of them either. After all, Hua Minghan was his wife. This was a well-known fact. The ancient Phoenix world had fallen out with him, so it was their own business. However, these people had clearly ignored him by participating in this martial arts competition. Clatter, clatter. In the blink of an eye, chains shot out from the coffin like spider silk, instantly forming a huge net in the sky. It was boundless and seemed as if it was going to lock down everything. This was the most terrifying part. This big net was faintly in line with the Great Tao. It resonated with the Great Tao. It seemed as if it would seal Yi Shiwen in an instant. Still not coming out? Hiding your head, but showing your tail. Who do you think you are? Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. He took a step forward, and the power of countless thunderbolts gushed out from his body. A sea of thunder and lightning formed around him. The thunder dragon halberd appeared in his hand, and he bombarded it towards the sky. Bang! Yi Shiwen's thunder dragon halberd fiercely collided with those chains, and those chains were bombarded into pieces on the spot. The sky shattered into pieces. It seemed as if it had suddenly turned upside down, and the cracks spread out in all directions of the arena. Yi Shiwen's figure flashed unceasingly in the sky. He then slashed towards the coffin. The hidden corpse in the coffin didn't try to dodge. Clang! A violent collision sound was heard. The thunder dragon halberd and the coffin collided, and sparks splashed in all directions. Needless to say, the thunder dragon halberd in Yi Shiwen's hand was a middle-grade divine tool. It was very good, especially it complemented his thunder technique. It complemented each other, and its might had doubled. However, it had failed to split the coffin into two halves. There's something strange about this coffin. Yi Shiwen immediately realized that there might be a big problem in this coffin. Then, he saw a sharp claw coming out of the coffin on the spot. It then fiercely clawed towards Yi Shiwen at an extremely fast speed. In fact, it was going straight towards his heart. Chapter 2470. Shwa! A loud sound was heard, and a strange sharp claw suddenly appeared in the void. It stretched out from the coffin and directly grabbed Yi Shiwen's chest. Your heart is mine. A hoarse and low voice suddenly burst in the surroundings. You want to kill me? You are far from qualified as a loser. Yi Shiwen suddenly stepped out. He did not avoid it, but instead faced it head-on. Behind him, an endless power of thunder suddenly broke out, and the Yin Chi was instantly smashed. The thunder dragon halberd appeared in his hand, and it directly slashed towards the big hand that was grabbing him. Bang! There was a loud collision sound. Yi Shiwen blocked this sharp claw at the critical moment. At the same time, the thunder dragon halberd in his hand blocked it. The galaxy shattered, and the world seemed to be turned upside down. And at this time, Yi Shiwen had already taken advantage of the situation and rushed to the front of this coffin. The speed was so fast that even the space was distorted. Some of the weaker people outside the arena wanted to forcibly use their divine thoughts to deduce the series of movements just now, but they had a feeling of wanting to vomit blood. This kind of power and the use of the laws completely exceeded the limits of what they could bear. It almost instantly disrupted the magic power in their bodies, causing the magic power in their bodies to go berserk. They felt like they were going to go berserk. So fast, I can't keep up at all. What kind of movement technique is this? It's so fast. Someone said with a mouthful of blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. Some people looked at Yi Shiwen in horror. They did not expect Yi Shiwen's speed to be so fast. This was completely different from what they saw in the last game. People who practiced thunder techniques were often very fast. They were all very clear about this. This was already a convention. People who practiced thunder techniques were often very fast. In the last game, Yi Shiwen's speed was already very fast. It could almost be said that he completely suppressed Xue Xiaohua, but compared to this time, it was simply insignificant. Everyone thought that this was Yi Shiwen's limit. After all, in the last battle, Yi Shiwen showed a terrifying cultivation of the flesh and spirit and completely crushed Xue Xiaohua. Who would have thought that it was far from the limit? But Yi Shiwen had restrained himself. I've never seen such a movement technique before. It's too fast. I know a little about movement techniques related to the lightning attribute, but why haven't I seen it before? Could it be another hidden force that hasn't appeared in the world? There were even more ancient deities that were completely shocked. Even the experienced and knowledgeable old antiques had never heard of this. It was clear that this movement technique was indeed extremely rare. Many of the old-timers were shocked. Meanwhile, Yi Shiwen had already launched his attack. The Thunder Dragon halberd in his hand erupted with astonishing power in the void. It transformed into a long dragon and directly bombarded the coffin. The power of lightning dissipated on the surface of the coffin, as if it was unable to do anything to the coffin. Who would have thought that the power of lightning would actually rush in through the cracks of the coffin at lightning speed, once again forming a long lightning dragon and violently exploding? Rumble! A huge explosion came from the inside of the coffin. This was a terrible explosion, and the coffin suddenly broke open, revealing a figure inside. His whole body was scorched black, as if he had been struck by lightning and roasted by fire. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one thought that Yi Shiwen would actually use this method to break open the coffin. This method was completely different from Jiren Wang's method of breaking open the coffin. It could be said that each had its own merits, but Yi Shiwen's bold and imaginative ideas during the battle had completely shocked them. At this time, Yi Shiwen finally saw the appearance of this hidden corpse. It was a man who looked about 30 years old. He was tall and had an extremely powerful aura around his body. He didn't know where he came from during his lifetime, but he was very terrifying. "You dare to force me to break open the coffin?" the corpse said coldly, and his tone was filled with anger. "So what? Do you think that no one can break your tortoise shell? Do you think that you can be arrogant and despotic by hiding inside?" Yi Shiwen said coldly, and his spirit was threatening. At this moment, his image in the hearts of everyone was that of a domineering young hero. "You are courting death," the hidden corpse roared in a low voice. Then his figure pounced towards Yi Shiwen like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. He instantly pounced towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. He brought along an earth-shattering corpse energy and an extremely formidable power. At this time, Yi Shiwen directly used the flickering thunder steps, and in a flash, his movements were agile and ethereal, and no one knew where he would appear next. Boom! 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 The corpse used all kinds of methods, but was unable to do anything to Yi Shiwen. His movements were always in the air, and he was completely unable to catch Yi Shiwen. What kind of agility technique is this? The corpse was furious and was unable to catch Yi Shiwen, which made him feel humiliated. "Die for me. I don't care what kind of agility technique you have. In front of me, you will die." The corpse roared, and his hands condensed into fists and directly blasted out. The fist in tension condensed and turned into all kinds of strange phenomena, and immediately an upside-down world appeared. This world was filled with endless corpse chi, and zombies were running rampant and instantly expanded outwards, shrouding Yi Shiwen. Corpse world descends. The terrifying magic power of the corpse turned into a terrifying world, and this world was condensed by him. This world was his domain, and along the way, no one knew how many powerful opponents he had devoured, and those defeated opponents also became nourishment for his corpse world, nourishing his corpse world, making it even more terrifying. Courting death. A dead man wants to counterattack? Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. His palms suddenly split apart, and thunder chains rushed out from the gaps between his fingers. They turned into a terrifying attack and blasted into the corpse world. Boom! The two ultimate skills fiercely collided, and in the chaos, the corpse chi and the power of thunder raged everywhere. I didn't expect this unknown life-stealing scholar to be so tyrannical. Defeating Xue Xiaohua is definitely not a fluke. And even facing the corpse, he is not at a disadvantage. He has hidden himself so deeply. I originally thought that the strength of the corpse was not the strongest, but at least one of the best, just that he had encountered the extremely terrifying Jiren Wang. But besides Jiren Wang, he should be the strongest. But who would have thought that even this life-stealing scholar is not a match for him? Bang! Amidst the endless storm, the corpse was sent flying upside down, and the blood at the corner of his mouth couldn't stop flowing. His chest was scorched black, and his flesh had been split open, and blood was flowing out. The outcome of the fight has been decided, and the corpse is actually at a disadvantage. On the cloud platform, some big shots of the ancient Phoenix realm saw this scene, and couldn't help but be surprised. The life-stealing scholar, a name that had never been heard of before, was much stronger than what he had shown. The corpse roared, and revealed the true appearance of a zombie, with a green face and fangs. He was different from an ordinary zombie, and zombies were born and raised by the earth, but he was raised by a human. He still retained many memories of his previous life, so most of the time, he was no different from when he was alive, but only at this time he would reveal his true form as a zombie. In midair, he shattered the void with 1 foot and stabilized his body, and instantly launched a counterattack, intending to kill Yi Shiwen on the spot. His stature was tall, and he blasted his fists with great strength. It was very terrifying, and the fist energy distorted the space, transforming it into a world of zombies, and devoured everything. Yi Shiwen wasn't inferior in the slightest. He also blasted his fists and gave tit for tat and didn't give in. At this time, everyone finally saw the confrontation between these two people. It was very terrifying, and the fist energy of these two people collided. And it directly created a spiderweb-like crack in the sky and spread across the entire arena in an instant. It looked very spectacular, but the most terrifying thing was that this was only a confrontation of pure strength. The control of these two people's strength had reached the pinnacle in this attack and hadn't leaked out. Instead, they bombarded each other's body. Thump, thump, thump. Someone retreated, and this person was none other than the corpse. He retreated again and again. He had suffered a big loss in this confrontation with Yi Shiwen, and had suffered a big loss. The radiance of thunder and lightning wound around his right arm, and took the form of a thunder dragon, and rushed straight towards his head to bite. His entire arm was charred black in an instant, and had been swallowed by the impact of Yi Shiwen's thunder power. The corpse almost instantly cut off his arm to prevent the thunder dragon from continuing to rush towards him. Blood continued to drip down, and he had suffered a big loss. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's body was also raging with corpse energy, but this corpse energy couldn't really cover Yi Shiwen's body at all. The power of thunder on Yi Shiwen's body was the extreme yang, and it was the nemesis of this extreme yin and evil energy. It had completely restrained this corpse energy. The corpse looked at Yi Shiwen and didn't dare to launch an attack at will. The attack just now had made him thoroughly understand the terror of this man in front of him. His martial power was unfathomably deep, and he could also feel that the strength in front of him was definitely not the bottom line of this man. He was unwilling. He had gone all out, but the opponent hadn't even used his full strength. This was simply a kind of humiliation. What was more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen's power had completely restrained his own power. Although it was said that it was difficult to completely restrain one's power after reaching a certain level. The power of the extreme yin could also restrain the power of the extreme yang, but this kind of attribute restraint still existed. He wasn't strong enough to completely ignore the opponent, because Yi Shiwen was also very strong. He stared at Yi Shiwen, and there seemed to be countless conspiracies flashing in his eyes. In the end, he could only clench his teeth and spit out a few words. "I admit defeat." Suddenly, there was an uproar. Chapter 2471. What? He actually admitted defeat? Everyone was stunned, as if afraid that they had misheard. Everyone quieted down, for fear that they had misheard. Corpse concealment actually admitted defeat. This was simply a huge anecdote. Even in the face of Jiren Wang, he had fought until the last moment, and had even said that he would surrender. However, in the face of Yi Shiwen, He actually gave up and admitted defeat. What the hell is going on? Could it be that Yi Shiwen was actually more terrifying than Ji Renwang? No one believed such a judgment. After all, compared to Yi Shiwen, Ji Renwang had been famous for many years, a true supreme master of the middle generation, one of the strongest under the titled king level. Although it was only an avatar, but it should be the strongest, no one could compare. Even Yi Shiwen was somewhat stunned. He was just about to attack again, but he saw Shering admit defeat. Could it be that the battle with Ji Renwang was too much for him? But he didn't care so much. He could save a lot of effort by admitting defeat, and it would be very important for him to win in the future. A group of light swept down, wrapping Shering in it. Shering deeply looked at Yi Shiwen. For him, he also wanted to fight to the death, but in fact, there was no such condition. He came here to participate in the martial arts competition to a large extent because of the sex arrangement, but he himself was not that interested, but he also didn't want to deal with it. So although he was unlucky to have drawn Ji Renwang in the first round, he still fought with all his strength. At the same time, he had also heard of Ji Renwang's supreme prestige. He also wanted to see how big the gap was between him and this legendary figure. But the result was obvious. There was still a huge gap between him and Ji Renwang. From the beginning to the end, he was completely suppressed. Even if he didn't count Ji Renwang's method of suppressing zombies, his real strength was still far from Yi Shiwen's. And after losing the first round, the possibility of participating in the finals was not big. And in his heart, Ji Renwang was invincible. Even if he advanced to the finals, he would still not be a match for Ji Renwang, so he already had the intention to retreat. Furthermore, the most important thing was that the life-stealing scholar in front of him had not been cultivating for a long time, but he was extremely terrifying. His lightning technique, in particular, completely suppressed his corpse path. Unless he could one day become a corpse emperor, it would be difficult for him to overcome this weakness of his element. He had already suffered a great loss by going all out. There was no point in continuing to fight, so he might as well not waste any more energy. However, his concession allowed Yi Shiwen to win easily. By the time Yi Shiwen reacted, he discovered that he was still the third one. The first one was Ji Renwang, and his opponent was Yi Wudi. In front of Ji Renwang, the invincible Yi Wudi was no match for him, and was almost defeated. Ji Renwang's clone was at the same level as Yi Wudi, but he was able to defeat Yi Wudi in a blink of an eye. Yi Wudi was also very tenacious, and he used many methods, but it was useless. In front of Ji Renwang, his strongest talisman, the Bell of Primal Chaos, was dissolved. Ji Renwang seemed to have something similar on him, so he was not afraid of the Bell of Primal Chaos. The final defeat reminded Yi Shiwen of the battle between Qin Lai and Ji Xianhuang. Qin Lai did not mention that battle in detail. He only said that he was no match for Ji Xianhuang, and was suppressed from start to finish. The most terrifying thing was that Ji Xianhuang had suppressed his realm to the same realm as Qin Lai, but Qin Lai was still no match for him. It was exactly the same as today's battle. Yi Wudi was unable to withstand a single blow from Ji Renwang, and he was continuously defeated. It seemed that he was very weak, or perhaps because Ji Renwang's realm was far higher than Yi Wudi's, the strength he could display in the same realm was far beyond Yi Wudi's imagination, and his magical power was above Yi Wudi's. At first glance, this seemed very reasonable, but Yi Shiwen himself knew that this was only suitable for ordinary people. Yi Wudi and Ji Renwang were not ordinary people. If it was someone else, even if they were also in the Sage realm, and they suppressed their realm to fight with Yi Wudi, according to Yi Wudi's strength, he would really beat the other party like a dog. It could only be said that Ji Renwang was not an ordinary existence. He began to get serious. This Ji Renwang's strength and threat were even above Ao Chaozong's. With such strength, it was very likely that he would become his final opponent. It was a pity that he was slower than Ji Renwang, and he could not see the actual situation at all. And Ao Chaozong was still one step faster than him. His opponent was his previous opponent, the young hierarch of the Heaven Evolution sect, Xue Xiaohua. After Xue Xiaohua lost to him, he was defeated by Ao Chaozong even faster. Moreover, because the injuries he had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen did not seem to have fully recovered, He was unable to withstand a single blow from Ao Chaozong, and he did not even have a decent counterattack. And after him was young Kuan-peng. This time he finally won. His opponent was King Kong Mu, and he fought with all he had, and King Kong Mu was defeated by him. And the last battle was between Feng Zihao and Yuan Hong. This battle could be said to be a chaotic one. Both of them had extraordinary real bodies, but the final result was that Feng Zihao was still defeated by Yuan Hong. As someone from the previous generation, Yuan Hong's clone was not as strong as Jiren Wang's province, but it was still very terrifying, and it successfully defeated Feng Zihao. This time, the scene was completely clear. There were a total of 4 people who had won 2 battles, and they were Jiren Wang, Ao Chaozong, Yi Shiwen, and Yuan Hong. Of the remaining 6 people, Yi Wudi and young Kuan-peng had each won 1 battle, and the others had lost 2 battles. On the high platform, Feng Nanshan's expression was extremely ugly. Feng Nantian was already the most outstanding person in his line, but when competing with outsiders, he had lost 2 battles, especially since the ancient Phoenix realm was the host. This was simply a great humiliation. He gripped the armrest tightly. These years, the ancient Phoenix realm had been lukewarm, relying on the remnants of the past to pass their days. Apart from the heavy injuries they had suffered during the War of Resistance against the Heavens, one of the main reasons was that the younger generation was not as good as the previous one. Although Feng Zihao's performance was not bad, he was not ranked among the strongest people of the current generation. This in itself was very fatal. He was originally one of the candidates that the ancient Phoenix realm had pushed out to cultivate to become a future emperor. Since ancient times, there had never been a case where a person who could be called an emperor was not one of the strongest people of the current generation. In a battle of the same realm, losing 2 battles was also a resounding slap to the ancient Phoenix realm. Although the opponents he had faced were very terrifying, the first one was the current master of the ancient heavenly court, the famous Yi Wudi. The other one was from the clan of the 4 spiritual monkeys, which had been one of the most illustrious clans since ancient times. It seemed that his defeat was not too shameful. However, a defeat was a defeat. There was no other explanation for a defeat. In the next battle, let Feng Zihao fight against that Xue Xiaohua. Among these people, his strength is the weakest. Moreover, he has yet to recover from his serious injuries. He is the representative of our ancient Phoenix realm. We cannot not win a single battle. Feng Nantian said coldly. If Feng Zihao could not win a single battle, it would be a slap to his face on the spot. Fortunately, Yi Wudi has already lost. Even if he wins the next battle, he will only win 2 battles. He will definitely not be able to enter the finals. I can finally get rid of that damned Yi Shiwen. Feng Nantian revealed a somewhat happy smile on his face as he thought of this. Although things did not go according to his best plan, at least it did not deteriorate into the worst situation. This time, Yi Shiwen did not come. Yi Wudi, who was the representative of Yi Shiwen, had already lost a battle. He no longer had the upper hand. He certainly would not have the opportunity to stand out unless all 4 of them were defeated. How could that be possible? These 4 people had won 2 battles. Among these 10 people, they were considered outstanding. They were the top of the top. Naturally, there was no need to worry. No, this is still possible. We cannot let Yi Wudi have a chance to turn the tables. Feng Nantian said coldly. In the next battle, let the first 4 people fight against each other. In this way, no matter who wins or loses, the remaining 2 people will have won all 3 battles. Even if Yi Wudi has monstrous skills, he will not have the chance to win another battle. Feng Nantian said coldly. He had already arranged everything. There were absolutely no loopholes. Yi Wudi would definitely not let him go and win again. However, there was still a kind of uneasiness in his heart. It was a strong uneasiness, as if he had missed something. This feeling made him very uneasy. At his level, it could be said that his cultivation had already reached a stage where ghosts and gods would weep. Normally, he could understand any problem with just a thought. However, at this moment, he had such an unsafe thought. There must be something that he had missed. However, no matter how he calculated, he could not calculate any loopholes in his plan. It was a completely perfect arrangement. Although Feng Ziheo's successive defeats made him very disappointed, the arrangement to deal with Yi Wudi was very appropriate. No matter what, the third round began. With his order, the curtain of the third round finally began. There was not much time to rest, because there was no need to continue fighting for Feng Ziheo. The third round has finally begun. This time, among the top four of the third round, there are actually two martial great masters. They are simply too powerful. There are only two martial great masters, and they actually made it into the semifinals. They are too strong. Stop talking. Look, the third round has finally begun. Hiss, how could it be like this? It is completely a battle between the strong. Chapter 2472. Seeing the situation of the third battle, everyone was stunned. The four people who had maintained a complete victory so far had actually started to fight against each other. Such a result was slightly shocking. Similarly, this meant that the other 6 people had no chance of advancing to the finals. The others were completely eliminated. The outcome would be decided by the 4 people in front of them. When Yi Shiwen saw this arrangement, he immediately understood why. It was to guard against Yi Wudi. In any case, Feng Ziheo had already lost all hope of advancing to the finals. Therefore, the ancient Phoenix Realm's next goal was to completely ban Yi Wudi. After losing to Ji Renwang, even if Yi Wudi won the next round, he would only be on par with the rest of them. And if 2 of the 4 of them won, then they would directly advance to the finals. Good plan. Yi Shiwen clicked his tongue in wonder. In front of him, his opponent had already appeared. It was none other than Yuan Hong. This was a sky-piercing violent ape. He had already transformed into his original form. His hair had grown in the opposite direction. He looked at Yi Shiwen with eyes full of tyranny. His face revealed a somewhat sinister expression. Brat, I've finally met you. Kill yourself, and I'll leave your corpse intact. Yuan Hong said tyrannically. But in front of him, Yi Shiwen seemed to be relieved. Yuan Hong's face immediately fell. How smart was he? He immediately figured out the reason for Yi Shiwen's expression. Was it because he was happy that his opponent was him? Damn it, he dared to look down on me. You dare to think that I'm a pushover? Ha ha ha. I won't even leave your corpse intact. Yuan Hong gnashed his teeth in anger. His real body could move unhindered in the world. He wasn't afraid of titled kings. But now he was being looked down upon by this guy. This was a great humiliation. It was even more humiliating than being defeated. Opposite him, Yi Shiwen's expression was calm. He wasn't moved by Yuan Hong's words. On the contrary, he just looked at him indifferently. I don't have much time. I must finish you before they do. So, I won't be polite this time. Yi Shiwen's eyes were as cold as the beginning of the universe. His voice was indifferent, but it contained a kind of strong self-confidence. To him, it didn't matter if Ji Renwang or Ao Chaozong won first. They would both become his strongest opponents. Therefore, he only had one choice, and that was to give it his all to recover to his peak condition. That way, no matter what kind of opponent he faced, he would have absolute confidence to face them. Life-stealing scholar, ever since I, Yuan Hong, made my debut, no one has ever dared to look down on me like this. I've killed countless scums like you. You'll pay for what you've said today. Yuan Hong said with a menacing expression. So you must die. Yuan Hong took a step forward. Chaotic chi gushed out from the top of his head, forming a cloud. The cloud shone brightly. This was a technique that Yuan Hong had never used before. Is that all? Let's go all out. Yi Shiwen shouted. Yuan Hong raised his eyebrows. He could clearly see that Yi Shiwen's imposing aura was rising as soon as his voice fell. His previous words were not meaningless, but rather it was a kind of martial arts method to enhance his own strength. Trying to disturb my state of mind? Yuan Hong said coldly. The cloud above his head gradually rotated, becoming more and more terrifying. An invincible pressure swept down fiercely. Yuan Hong was not affected by it. He had his own extreme confidence. As the descendant of the 4 chaotic monkeys, he was extremely talented and was not afraid of any opponent. The iron staff in his hand suddenly spun, forming a circle in his hand. In an instant, it turned into a pillar that could support the sky. A vast amount of qi burst out from it, and it instantly crushed down on Yi Shiwen. It was not an attack, but a complete crushing down. The iron staff grew longer and larger, covering the sky. In an instant, it blocked all the escape routes in the sky, preventing Yi Shiwen from escaping. Yi Shiwen did not move an inch. In the end, he finally made his move. His hands tore apart the sky full of lightning. He clenched his fists and met the attack head-on. Clang! A deafening roar rang out. The sky was shaking, and everything in the world was trembling. The entire arena rumbled and shook, as if two monsters were fighting each other. Everyone had seen the tyrannical physical strength of the two. This time, the collision shocked countless people. The violent collision caused the void to tremble for a long time. After Yuan Hong's attack failed, he immediately retracted his iron staff. A dazzling light burst out, washing out rays of dazzling black gold light. Then, his whole body soared into the sky. The man and the staff became one. This was an extremely brilliant martial arts technique. I will split the chaos in the world, Yuan Hong roared, activating all the spiritual power in his body. He was going all out. Yi Shiwen's disregard had thoroughly enraged him. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen, otherwise he would not be able to suppress the rage in his heart. Although this was not his real body, it was just an avatar. His strength was equally terrifying. The iron staff swept across the sky, and unexpectedly, clanging sounds could be heard as it once again smashed down. Again, I don't believe that your fist is harder than my staff. Yuan Hong roared. A mere Eternal Realm expert also wanted to challenge him. Today, I must kill you. The spiritual power in Yuan Hong's body burst out. The iron staff in his hand actually tore the void apart. The cloud above his head became even more terrifying. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fists met again. The strength of both sides had increased by a lot. He wore a thunder armor, wrapping himself in it. It was as if he was a man of lightning. After this attack, everyone could only see that Yi Shiwen's eyes were exceptionally cold. Countless calculations were reflected in his eyes. In a second, countless changes, all kinds of details, were constantly evolving in his eyes. After wearing the thunder armor, Yi Shiwen's defensive ability had almost reached the peak, an abnormal level. So, what if your iron staff is a divine tool? Today, I will destroy your divine tool with my bare hands. Yi Shiwen shouted. After this attack, he took the initiative to launch an attack, counterattacking Yuan Hong, who had used a divine tool. His fists brought about a thunderstorm, tearing through the void, and ruthlessly bombarded towards Yuan Hong. Yuan Hong was also somewhat surprised. One must know that even he felt his hands go numb from the previous attack. He was shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength, but this Yi Shiwen actually took the initiative to attack as if nothing had happened. What a joke! Yuan Hong was furious. The iron staff in his hand suddenly smashed down towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! Another loud collision sound rang out. Behind Yi Shiwen, a true god condensed from thunder and lightning instantly appeared. As if an ancient emperor had come back to life, the terrifying power of thunder and lightning suddenly burst out. All the power of the lightning burst out in an instant, and the iron rod smashed directly on the phantom, forming a shocking ripple that shook out. Yi Shiwen failed to kill Yi Shiwen. Instead, he took a big step forward and instantly attacked in front of Yuan Hong. His fists formed two dragon heads, suddenly opened their big mouths and swallowed Yuan Hong. Bang! Yuan Hong was directly sent flying by Yi Shiwen's attack on the spot. Yi Shiwen did not show the slightest bit of politeness. Yuan Hong was at a disadvantage in this collision. It seemed that their skills were similar, but in fact, the strength of their bodies was incomparable. Perhaps Yuan Hong would not be at a disadvantage in the same realm, but now his avatar was only a small part of his blood essence and soul incarnation. It was far inferior to his real body. Yi Shiwen would not underestimate Yuan Hong's real body because of this. However, he did not care about Yuan Hong's avatar. Those geniuses of tens of thousands of years ago might be powerful, but if they thought that they could completely suppress Yuan Hong with just an avatar, then they would be underestimating their generation. They could only rely on their combat experience that far exceeded that of their generation. However, when Yi Shiwen abandoned everything else and only competed with his opponent in the simplest and most basic things, everything was different. A few cracks appeared on Yuan Hong's body. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Impossible! Even if it's just an avatar, I still have the ability to fight in the sky. How can I be inferior to you? Yuan Hong roared. He was still flying in the air and was about to launch a counterattack. How can I let you succeed? Yi Shiwen took a step forward. His foot was like a pillar that supported the heavens. Bang! Yuan Hong was directly trampled by Yi Shiwen's foot and ruthlessly slammed into the ground. Even the indestructible ground cracked. One could imagine how terrifying this attack was. A big hole appeared on Yuan Hong's chest. His flesh was badly mangled, but it quickly recovered in a short time. This was the power of an Eternal Realm expert. It was extremely difficult to kill. Everyone outside the arena was completely scared silly when they saw this scene. How could Yuan Hong be beaten so miserably? He was simply unable to fight back in front of Yi Shiwen. Is that a martial arts avatar? Someone saw the huge shadow behind Yi Shiwen and confirmed that it was a thunder avatar. The power of thunder itself was one of the most terrifying forces in the world. Avatars condensed from the power of thunder had always been one of the most terrifying types of avatars. In front of everyone, the thunder avatar behind Yi Shiwen slowly merged into his body. Yi Shiwen's strength also grew at a terrifying rate. His aura also skyrocketed inch by inch. At this moment, Yi Shiwen no longer concealed himself. He brought out the thunder avatar and completely unleashed his strength. Bang! Yi Shiwen casually scattered the auspicious clouds that shrouded Yuan Hong's head. It was a very easy feat, and Yuan Hong's auspicious clouds were easily defeated. After merging with the thunder avatar, Yi Shiwen's strength increased by more than a little, while Yuan Hong's did not change at all. The gap between them rapidly widened. Chapter 2473. Yuan Hong's attack was easily taken care of by Yi Shiwen. Everyone outside the arena sighed. Sigh, Yuan Hong's real body is not here. Otherwise, he wouldn't be bullied to this extent. Someone sighed and felt sorry for Yuan Hong. Even if it was just a doppelganger, once it was defeated, it could be said that the prestige that he had accumulated over the years would be destroyed. Is his real body really going to come? Not to mention the fact that he has to prepare for the Kerfus Road. Most importantly, if his real body really comes, it will be seen as the strong bullying the weak. Then, even if he wins, it will not be a good reputation. Someone curled his lips and said, yes, although they are very strong in the same realm, it is no different from the Arabian Nights to defeat the heaven's pride of this generation with only a doppelganger. He is really thinking too much. That's true. Which of the peerless figures of this generation did not have many fortuitous encounters? It is just that their cultivation time is too short. Otherwise, they would be on par with them. This life-stealing scholar is one such example. With his cultivation of Thunder Dao, his future is limitless. Life-stealing scholar, don't even think of defeating me. Yuan Hong's body once again glowed with vitality. He leapt up from the ground, and his aura also gradually grew stronger, as if he was unsealing the power in his body. He was a clone, and his body contained a portion of the power that Yuan Hong had hidden away. When the need arose, he could unseal it. Of course, the consequences of doing so were very serious. He was just a doppelganger, so there was no way he could withstand such a terrifying power. Unless his real body was present, it would not take long for him to self-destruct. It could be said that it was a way to perish together. You want to defeat me with the power hidden in your doppelganger? Although Yi Shiwen was not afraid, he had to win quickly in order to seize the initiative. This time, there were advantages and disadvantages to this arrangement. The advantage was that as long as he won, he would definitely be able to enter the finals. There was no need to worry about the fact that he had used too much time earlier. However, the disadvantage was that he had to seize the initiative this time in order to recover more of his strength. Yi Shiwen did not wait for Yuan Hong to completely release his power. The Thunder Dragon halberd appeared in his hand and slashed towards Yuan Hong. Yuan Hong quickly raised his hand and blocked with the iron rod. Although the energy in his body was merging very quickly, it still needed time. As long as he completely released his power, it would be the time of Yi Shiwen's death. Bang! He spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying upside down. After fusing with the Thunder Path incarnation, Yi Shiwen's strength had increased by more than a little. In an instant, Yuan Hong was sent flying. Yuan Hong screamed again and again. Yi Shiwen's power of thunder was wreaking havoc inside his body, destroying his muscle tissues. This was a complete massacre. His offensive was simply vulnerable when facing Yi Shiwen. He was defeated on the spot. He was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. However, his offensive was easily blocked by Yi Shiwen. At this time, Yi Shiwen was truly like an ancient emperor. He had swept away all the strong enemies in his path. I'll fight it out with you. Even if I die, you won't have it easy. Yuan Hong let out a loud roar and directly tore open his body. The energy that had yet to completely dissolve burst out in an instant, forming a beam of light and bombarding towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! This dreadful energy bombarded out at an incredible speed, piercing through the void. When it reappeared, it had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. Yuan Hong was also a veteran of many battles. Seeing that he was at a disadvantage, he simply threw caution to the wind and launched a final attack. If he succeeded, he would be able to successfully kill Yi Shiwen. If he failed, it would not be any worse than before. He was also a resolute and ruthless person. Yi Shiwen only had time to set up a wall of thunder and lightning. At this time, there was no time to hide. This energy would sweep through the void, and he would not be able to hide in other spaces. He could only fight it head-on. Boom! The terrifying power spread, and Yi Shiwen's palm came into contact with this terrifying power. Boom! In an instant, this terrifying power blasted Yi Shiwen's palm into a bloody mess. This was the power of the Sage Realm, which was above the imperishable realm. Moreover, it was the power of the best of the Sage Realm. Even Yuan Hong's avatar, whose body was equivalent to the peak of the imperishable realm, was unable to maintain it for a long time. It was also unable to devour it. It was easy to imagine that this power had already surpassed the limits of the imperishable realm. Ha ha, immortal scholar, this was originally prepared for Ji Renwang. Now it's yours. Yuan Hong saw that in that instant, Yi Shiwen was engulfed by the energy. Finally, he could not help but burst into laughter. Originally, he was extremely confident that there were not many opponents in the world who could rival him. Among the people who came this time, only Ji Renwang was worthy of his attention. Although he had not fought with Ji Renwang in the Kerfus Road, he had heard that Ji Renwang was the champion. Every time the Kerfus Road was opened, it was an opportunity. There was no telling how many powerful beings had entered it since ancient times. None of the juniors knew it as well as he did how difficult it was to take the lead and become one of the strongest people in the Kerfus Road. He had participated in the Kerfus Road twice. In the first one, he was just a passerby, a spectator, and his strength was not good at all. In the Kerfus Road, where monsters ran rampant, he was nothing at all. In the second one, he was only considered to be an expert. This was the third time he was going to participate in the Kerfus Road. This time, his goal was very simple, which was to become the strongest. Only by doing so, and becoming one of the strongest, would he be qualified to fight for that wisp of opportunity. The opportunity to become an emperor. Only by becoming an emperor could one become the strongest in the world. There was no one who would not be tempted. Because of this, he was very clear about how difficult it was to be the champion on the Kerfus Road. But Ji Renwang had entered for the first time, and he was already the champion, becoming one of the strongest. If he was already a genius, then Ji Renwang was undoubtedly a monster. Yuan Hong had also heard of his legend. Even the heavens had given him the title of King of Men. This kind of monster had only been seen in ancient books. To think that there was such a person in the current generation, one could imagine how terrifying he was. He was also the person that he was most afraid of in this trip. They were both doppelgangers, and he also knew that he was not Ji Renwang's opponent. This move was originally left to deal with Ji Renwang, but he did not expect that he would have to leave it for a junior. Before he could even deal with Ji Renwang, it would have to end. He was really unwilling. But to be able to kill this little bastard, it was enough. So what a pity. This life-stealing scholar is so strong. If he does not die, he will definitely become an invincible expert in the future. But it's a pity that he is different from Yuan Hong. If Yuan Hong dies, he just loses a doppelganger. But if he dies, he will really die. But after losing such a genius, will the martial arts sect just let it go? What's the big deal? Do you think they can attack the ancient Phoenix realm? This itself is a matter of life and death. Swoosh! Suddenly, a long halberd pierced through the air amidst the chaotic explosions, directly blasting the defenseless Yuan Hong's head apart on the spot. Everyone was stunned. They thought that victory was already decided, but in the end, such an unforeseen event happened. Just what in the world happened? Everyone looked at the ball of energy that was still exploding. Even from afar, they could feel how terrifying that ball of energy was. Even a master of the eternal realm would be torn apart in an instant. The smoke dissipated, and a bloody light burst out from within. Then, the energy disappeared in an instant, revealing Yi Shiwen's figure within. He was in a somewhat sorry state, and the skin on his palms was healing bit by bit. Forcefully taking on the energy just now had almost shattered his palms. This power had surpassed him by a whole realm. Fortunately, it was only energy. In the end, it was swallowed by Tianyuan Mirror and forcefully taken on. Otherwise, he might not have been able to take it off himself. He was still a little surprised. A master of the Sage Realm was much more terrifying than he had imagined. Moreover, it was the pinnacle of the Sage Realm. Were all the people on the path of choosing Emperor monsters like this? Yuan Hong's primordial spirit was instantly destroyed by the Thunder Dragon Halberd. His physical body shattered on the spot, turning into a ball of light and disappearing before everyone's eyes. However, this energy also gave him a chance to study the power of the Sage Realm. But at the moment, he really couldn't care less about that because he had just taken care of Yuan Hong and was already teleported out. He was shocked. He had clearly used his full strength to take care of Yuan Hong and fight for time, but he was still too late. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in another arena. On the other side of the arena, a calm man stood in the sky, like a mountain, giving off an unapproachable aura. Who else could it be but Ao Chaozong? But at the moment, Ao Chaozong's situation was not that good, and he was in a rather sorry state. His clothes were ragged, and his hair was disheveled. He looked like he had just been beaten up. It was then that Yi Shiwen learned that Ao Chaozong did not have an easy time in his battle with Ji Renwang. It should be said that Ao Chaozong was suppressed from beginning to end, and Ji Renwang seemed to be venting his anger, beating Ao Chaozong up straight away, then saying that he had admitted defeat, completely shattering his clone. And just like that, Ao Chaozong won inexplicably. There was no need to mention the sullen expression on his face. Although he had won, no one thought that he had really won. Even he himself didn't think this way. His face was ashen. Losing to a powerful ancient genius wasn't that big of a deal. His cultivation time was still short, so this wasn't much. However, he couldn't even defeat a clone. For someone like him who always had great ambitions, this was a complete humiliation, a stain that would remain for the rest of his life. Chapter 2474. A clone of a powerful ancient prodigy was the best touchstone for him. Dominating among his peers was nothing to him. He wanted to dominate all geniuses since ancient times and defeat all of them. His current strength was not enough to contend against these monstrous geniuses, but a clone was an opportunity. He was born on Dragon Island, and his innate magical powers were terrifying. He even had the supreme inheritance of the ancestral dragon. He was not afraid of anyone in this world, but he was beaten up by Ji Renwang. Even if the opponent was from the Ji clan, even if the opponent was from the martial sect, he was still unable to accept such an outcome. It is true that the martial sect is incomparably illustrious, but the Dragon Island is also a powerful inheritance that was revered by the people of the world. In terms of background, he does not lose to anyone. In terms of learning, he also thinks that he is the strongest existence in the world. In the end, he was beaten like a dog in a battle with Ji Renwang's clone. Moreover, Ji Renwang's surrender was a joke to him. After teaching him a lesson, Ji Renwang admitted defeat. It was obvious that he was watching a joke. He also knew that at this moment, everyone would probably think of him as a joke. Especially when Yi Shiwen appeared. He knew that the battle between Yi Shiwen and Yuan Hong had ended with Yi Shiwen's victory. It didn't seem to be a very miserable victory. Both of them had fought against the ancient geniuses, but the result was so different. This made him even more furious. Yi Shiwen looked at Ao Chaozong and did not attack immediately. He knew that Ao Chaozong was not in peak condition, but he was not in peak condition either. Instead of attacking rashly, it was better to recover and think about it later. Thinking of this, he simply sat on the ground and began to meditate. Although the Tianyuan mirror absorbed most of the power from that attack, it still injured him. On the other side, Ao Chaozong breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Yi Shiwen did not rush over immediately. He was in a very difficult situation. Although it was not to the point where he could not fight, it was not the most suitable situation. On the cloud platform, the big shots of the ancient Phoenix realm looked at each other. The situation on both sides was completely different from what they expected. Whether it was Yi Shiwen, Yuan Hong, or Ao Chaozong and Ji Renwang, they were all the same. Ao Chaozong and Ji Renwang's battle had no suspense from the start. Ao Chaozong was completely suppressed by Ji Renwang. In fact, in these three battles, Ji Renwang's battles had always been one-sided. But the real surprise was when Ji Renwang admitted defeat right after he defeated Ao Chaozong. This was practically an announcement to the public that he just wanted to teach Ao Chaozong a lesson. This was even more humiliating than a direct defeat. I didn't think that Ji Renwang would use this kind of method to slap the dragon race in the face. A big shot couldn't help but sigh. There's nothing strange about this. That was the first time he entered the Kurfürst Road, but he was already a peerless prodigy. It should be the Ji family's loss. They are both surnamed Ji, but he is not a member of the Ji family. He can only watch as the bloodline rises in the martial great sect. This might be a way to preserve the family. Who knows? But I'm afraid that Ji Renwang came here for Ao Chaozong. I still vaguely remember that incident. It seemed that Ao Chaozong was once again disrespectful to the martial great sect. But who would have thought that he was only here for this? What kind of insult is this? How can it be that simple? Ji Renwang did not go in person, but only sent a doppelganger, and it was even controlled at the peak of the Eternal Realm. Why? I'm afraid it's to announce to the world that I'm not bullying the weak. I can beat you up when we are in the same realm. How domineering! Some big shots lamented. Not everyone could be tough in front of Ji Renwang. Ji Renwang's strength was unfathomable. He dominated the Kurfürst Road for the first time. Now that 100,000 years had passed, it was impossible to estimate how strong he had become. No matter what, I'm afraid that Ao Chaozong has lost all his face this time. Is there still a need for a marriage alliance with such a person? Some big shots asked. This time, Ao Chaozong had lost all his face. If the ancient Phoenix realm wanted to form a marriage alliance with them, it was inevitable that they would be implicated. That's nothing. Don't forget that we are the ancient Phoenix realm. Behind Ao Chaozong is the Dragon Clan. Who dares to gossip in front of our two clans? As for the temporary failure, it's nothing. Feng Nantian said indifferently. Ao Chaozong was not what he valued the most. What he valued was the power of the Dragon Clan. If they could unite with the Phoenix Clan at this time, they would be able to get through the most difficult time in this period. He looked at Yi Shiwen. If the matter of Ao Chaozong and Ji Renwang was said to be a little shocking, then Yi Shiwen defeating Yuan Hong was something that he had never expected. Those ancient geniuses were very strong. Ao Chaozong was already the strongest genius of the current generation. But in the end, he was beaten half to death. Although Yuan Hong might not be as strong as Ji Renwang, he was beaten half to death by Yi Shiwen without any strength to fight back. If he hadn't used a big move at the end to injure Yi Shiwen, the scene would have been too ugly to look at. One could imagine the shock that Yi Shiwen had given everyone. What secret is this deadly scholar hiding? Fo Nantian said, while tapping his finger on the armrest. The others were still fighting, but the result of the battle did not matter to him anymore. The finals had already begun, so there was no point in fighting anymore. I never expected that the last two battles would be completely reversed. The spectators were speechless when they saw this scene. Fortunately, no one had opened the bet. Otherwise, they would have lost everything. Jiren Wang seems to be here for fun. He doesn't seem to care about the battle here at all. I know. This Jiren Wang must have come because of A.O. Chaozong's arrogant words. I heard that A.O. Chaozong didn't put the martial sect in his eyes at all. Now, the retribution has come. It's not that there are no capable people in the martial sect. It's just that no one has taken action. Now, the hatred between the two sides is even greater. Although A.O. Chaozong is no match for Jiren Wang, it's not that there are no experts in the Dragon Island. There are also peerless experts from the Dragon Island who have participated in the Kurfürst Road. I'm afraid there won't be any peace when the time comes. Everyone was talking about it. Whether it was the martial sect or the Dragon Island, they were both giants that were beyond their reach. No matter what, the battle between the peerless heroes of these two giants would attract a lot of attention no matter what. Everyone's eyes fell on Yi Shiwen and A.O. Chaozong. One of them had defeated an ancient genius in a domineering manner, and the other one had been humiliated by Jiren Wang. So, he had been suppressing his anger and wanted to take revenge. The battle between these two people would be more exciting than any of the previous battles. Suddenly, both sides jumped up at the same time. They jumped up violently at almost the same time. Both sides didn't move recklessly. Instead, they stood in a stalemate. Deadly Scholar, I want you to go back and tell Jiren Wang that I'll make him pay for the humiliation I've suffered today with interest. A.O. Chaozong's complexion turned ashen as he said. He was so angry that his liver and guts were trembling. He flew into a rage. This was a humiliation that he would never be able to wash away in his lifetime. Even if his opponent was a peerless genius of the so-called Imperial Clan, G family. Tell him that he'd better not lose to anyone else before he loses to me. I'll take his head with my own hands. A.O. Chaozong's will was not as strong as iron. He quickly suppressed this feeling of humiliation and said coldly, "Go and tell him yourself if you have the guts to do so," Yi Shiwen said indifferently. He knew that A.O. Chaozong had regarded him as a member of the martial sect. After all, he had also come on behalf of the martial sect. Things have already reached this point. If I were you, I would have tactfully retreated. You've already been beaten up by Jiren Wang. You've lost all your face. Do you want to repeat the same thing again? Yi Shiwen put his hands behind his back. He looked calm and relaxed. However, every cell in his body was in a tense state. He was ready to attack at any time. A.O. Chaozong's complexion turned even darker. However, he didn't get provoked by Yi Shiwen. He just took a step forward. Bang! The void collapsed on the spot. Cracks formed in the void. Then they spread out in all directions like a spider web. A terrifying power rushed out from the cracks like a landslide or a tsunami. It was extremely terrifying. The terrifying power was like a tsunami. It crushed down towards Yi Shiwen with an earth-shattering momentum. You want to provoke me? You're too naive. Since you're not willing to pass on the message, then I'll kill you first. Then, I'll go and kill him later. I'll make him regret it for the rest of his life. A.O. Chaozong said coldly. A heavenly halberd appeared in his hand at this moment. The surging power coming from his body was terrifying even from afar. Yi Shiwen's sleeves were fluttering in the violent power. Yi Shiwen's expression was exceptionally cold. He had fought against A.O. Chaozong before. However, it was only a clone. The power that his clone possessed wasn't even 1,000th of his main body. They weren't on the same level. It would be a huge mistake if one were to use the battle situation of his clone to predict his main body's strength. It would be completely immeasurable. There were many techniques that his clone couldn't display. However, his main body could. A.O. Chaozong's power rose to the peak in this violent aura. The heavenly halberd in his hand turned from rotten to magical. It hacked down towards Yi Shiwen. The world seemed to have transformed into a pitch-black crack. The crack spread down towards Yi Shiwen from the sky. Chapter 2475. Ao Chaozong wanted to wash away his humiliation. He might not be able to defeat Ji Ren Wang right now, but in his eyes, Yi Shiwen and Ji Ren Wang were of the same sect. Killing Yi Shiwen first would be considered as collecting some interest. The terrifying dragon Shi splashed out. It was like a group of twinkling stars in the night sky. The sky was filled with halberd lights. They were shattering the vast sky and were ferociously bombarding towards Yi Shiwen. This halberd attack displayed a terrifying power. Yi Shiwen was not to be outdone, and the Thunder Dragon halberd met the attack head-on. The Thunder Dragon halberd turned into a Thunder Dragon, breaking through the sky with the power to create chaos. Boom! With a loud rumble, the two halberds finally collided. Ao Chaozong and Yi Shiwen both took a few steps back and separated. This attack was evenly matched, and neither of them had the upper hand. You want to mess with Ji Ren Wang with this kind of strength? I think you're really looking for death. Yi Shiwen retorted coldly. What a glib tongue. Ao Chaozong, who was in battle mode, was as cold as water. He was no longer affected by these words. The halberd in his hand swept across the sky without the slightest ripple and fell straight down. If an ordinary person were to see this, they would think that it was an attack from a Hotian-level warrior. However, Yi Shiwen knew that this attack was no trifling matter. The Thunder Dragon halberd in his hand instantly shot out a halberd light to meet the incoming attack. The power of thunder splashed out of his body to block Ao Chaozong's attack. Boom! 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 Both sides had exchanged 1,000 blows, 10,000 blows, and each blow was more intense than the last. The power of both sides was slowly climbing to the peak. It seemed that Ao Chaozong was the one who took the initiative to attack, but Yi Shiwen was able to defend himself. No matter how terrifying Ao Chaozong's attacks were, he was able to block them all without missing a single one. If Ao Chaozong's attacks were like an endless tide, then Yi Shiwen would be like a boulder. He wouldn't waver in the slightest no matter how many attacks he threw at him. The attacks from both sides were very intense. However, one could tell just by looking at the two of them. Both of them had very serious expressions on their faces, but it didn't seem like they had entered a decisive battle. Especially Yi Shiwen. He was able to calculate a portion of Ao Chaozong's strength every time he blocked an attack. He hadn't witnessed the previous battle with his own eyes, so he could only make a new calculation now. Many big shots of the ancient Phoenix world on the high platform were watching with rapt attention. They had thought that Ao Chaozong would have been able to gain the upper hand. After all, Ao Chaozong was one of the top experts of this world regardless of his race or his knowledge. He had lost to Ji Ren Wang because Ao Chaozong was too strong. So, he couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen now. This was completely beyond their expectations. Their minds began to churn as they tried their best to figure out which lineage within the martial sect was able to groom such a formidable prodigy who was able to compete with Ao Chaozong. More importantly, he was only at the imperishable realm middle stage. Thinking about it, the fatal stealing scholar seemed to be much more terrifying than Ao Chaozong. This fatal stealing scholar is really unfathomable. He'll definitely become a great person in the future, a big shot of the ancient Phoenix world said. Originally, they could still leisurely watch the battles between the younger generation. However, when they looked at Ao Chaozong and the fatal stealing scholar now, they realized that both of them were well-known figures of this generation. Regardless of whether it was their attacks, the timing of their moves, or their understanding of martial arts, they had all reached the peak of perfection. Many people were even ashamed to realize that if they were in the same realm, they might not be a match for these two people. These two are peerless heroes. Either one of them will have no problem matching up with the Phoenix Maiden. One of them is the Dragon Island, and the other is the martial sect. Both of them had emperor legacies. They're not inferior to our ancient Phoenix world at all. A big shot nodded. In fact, it wasn't just not inferior. In the past, it was hard to say. But now that the ancient Phoenix world had been heavily damaged, it was definitely far inferior to these two legacies. Look, Ao Chaozong has made his move. He's going all out. Everyone turned to look and saw that at this moment, Ao Chaozong and Yi Shiwen had separated from each other. Are you trying to test me? Ao Chaozong's lips curled into a cold smile. But I was also testing you just now. I've already seen through your intentions. He stopped moving and didn't launch an attack. Instead, he just smiled coldly. Even if you have such intentions, it's useless. My strength is unfathomable. It's not something you can see through with such a simple method. As Ao Chaozong spoke, waves of aura gushed out from his body. In an instant, the dragon aura gushed out from his body and turned into many gods. Moreover, they were gods of the dragon tribe. One by one, they formed a huge kingdom of the dragon tribe. And in the center of the entire dragon tribe kingdom, a huge nine-clawed divine dragon was sitting. It was giving a sermon. Golden lotuses fell from the sky, and each golden lotus contained the essence of the great Tao. Could this be the supreme skill of the dragon tribe, the ancestral dragon sermon? Feng Nantian jumped to his feet and widened his eyes. That's right, it's definitely the ancestral dragon sermon. It's said that the younger generations of the dragon tribe used their great powers to develop the ancestral dragon sermon diagram. The diagram is even in the deepest part of the Dragon Island. Later on, I heard that someone used it to develop a supreme skill. But I've never seen it with my own eyes. This is just too shocking. Some of the big shots from the ancient Phoenix realm said with a trembling voice. They seemed to be completely shocked by the diagram. Everyone in the universe knew what kind of person the ancestral dragon was. He was one of the strongest in the universe. Back in the day, he and the Phoenix ancestor of the ancient Phoenix realm were both figures who dominated the universe. Even the gods of the dragon tribe came from all over to listen to the sermon of an emperor-level figure. It formed a shocking diagram of the ancestral dragon sermon. Among the gods who came to listen to the sermon, the weakest were powerful existences of the sage realm. It was just that it could no longer be restored to its former glory. But just the thought of the grand occasion of the sermon was enough to make people yearn for it. Unfortunately, the most important ancestral dragon within this ancestral dragon Tao lecture diagram is still blurry and cannot be seen clearly. Otherwise, this ancestral dragon Tao lecture diagram would be terrifying. Feng Nanshan's eyes were shining as he stared at it for a while before he involuntarily spoke in a regretful manner. And most importantly, he didn't use his own strength to develop it. I'm afraid he obtained a copy of the ancestral dragon's sermon diagram. Although it's not bad to use the copy to demonstrate it, it's still a bit inferior. Ever since the Golden Dragon King evolved the ancestral dragon's sermon diagram, there's only one other than the Golden Dragon King who could cultivate this martial art to the highest realm. It's already shocking enough that Ao Chaozong could reach this level. Someone couldn't help but say. Although it wasn't the most complete, it was still very shocking. Maybe one day it will be fully developed. There was no way to fully develop the ancestral dragon sermon diagram now, but it was hard to say in the future. After all, this was a martial art, a supreme martial art. In this diagram of the ancestral dragon sermon diagram, Ao Chaozong stood in the sky like a demon god, exuding an extremely terrifying aura. At this moment, he was the ruler of the world, as if he had suddenly become the ruler of the entire world, becoming the ancestral dragon that dominated the world countless years ago. Every technique was no longer a secret in front of him. He could see through everything with his discerning eyes. This was an unparalleled pressure that came crashing down. This technique simulated the grand occasion of the ancestral dragon sermon in the past, suppressing everything in all directions, and no one could stand in its way. In the Dragon Clan, this technique had a supreme reputation. This was because this technique faintly borrowed the ancestral dragon's luck. Although the ancestral dragon had already fallen, his might still existed in the world. It was just that it was very difficult for people to borrow even a little bit of it. And this technique could borrow the fortune of the ancestral dragon to suppress all enemies. Yi Shiwen also faintly felt a kind of pressure coming from the void, as if a terrifying big shot was staring at him, causing him to feel an endless pressure. The ancestral dragon's sermon diagram. Yi Shiwen spat out these words coldly. In order to deal with Ao Chaozong, he had looked up a lot of information, and among them was the ancestral dragon sermon diagram. Although the Golden Dragon King hadn't attained the Tao in the past, he relied on this technique to kill several kings of the Celestial Clan and made a name for himself in the First War against the Heavens. From then on, the ancestral dragon's Tao lecture picture was known to the world. It was just that this divine ability was extremely difficult to cultivate. There weren't many that could be deduced with one's own strength. Most of them relied on the picture scroll and copied the rubbing to display it. But even so, this technique was still very shocking. That's right, I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable, Ao Chaozong said coldly, and the picture scroll slowly rose under his control and instantly suppressed Yi Shiwen. It was even more terrifying than the suppression of a world, as if there was an even more terrifying power added to it. It made him feel as if his vision turned black and he was about to faint. This was not even suppressed, and just the aura alone was already so terrifying. If it was completely suppressed, then the consequences would be unimaginable. Although he didn't have the enlightening mind ancient tree with him, he could still feel this terrifying pressure even with his willpower. One could imagine how terrifying this technique was. You want to defeat me with just the aura? You're too naive, Yi Shiwen shouted, and all the power in his body exploded and rushed to the sky. Then I'll suppress you to death, Ao Chaozong shouted. Chapter 2476. That life-stealing scholar actually managed to block the ancestral dragon's Tao lecture. According to the legends, the ancestral dragon's Tao lecture contains the imprint of the great way of the ancestral dragon's Tao lecture. Apart from the emperor, who in this world can resist the imprint of the great way of the emperor? Therefore, this move is almost invincible. However, this life-stealing scholar was not affected by the imprint of the great way of the ancestral dragon. Could it be that he wants to break away from the influence of his ancestors and carve out his own path of invincibility? Someone exclaimed. Under the influence of the emperor's imprint, almost no one would be unaffected. Needless to say, everyone could understand how terrifying the ancestral dragon's Tao lecture was. However, Yi Shiwen actually managed to block it. This was completely beyond everyone's expectations. The kind of imprint of the emperor's level. Even though we are far away, we can still feel it. That life-stealing scholar is enduring a terrifying pressure. Youngsters nowadays are getting more and more terrifying. Even us old fellows are sweating in shame. A powerful existence of the ancient Phoenix realm couldn't help but sigh. Ao Chaozong didn't even use this move just now. It's too terrifying. He didn't even have the time to use it just now. He was suppressed by Ji Renwang from the beginning to the end. He didn't even have a decent chance to counterattack. Feng Nantian said indifferently. In fact, he was more optimistic about Ji Renwang. Although Ao Chaozong was also not bad, Ji Renwang was the most suitable candidate to suppress Ao Chaozong. As long as he was willing to release the seal on his body, it was only a matter of time before he broke into the realm of the titled king. In fact, he could become a top-notch king in a short time. Otherwise, how could he bear the heavy responsibility of the marriage alliance? Moreover, this life-stealing scholar was also a peerless genius. He was indeed extraordinary to be able to withstand such an attack. However, the better the life-stealing scholar performed, the more uneasy Feng Nantian felt. He didn't know why. At this time, Ao Chaozong had already launched his attack. The ancestral dragon's Tao lecture was slowly suppressing the surroundings. However, the truly terrifying thing was that this wasn't the end of the attack. In the sky, the gods of the dragon race that were originally in the picture scroll came back to life. It was as if they had become gods. They raised their heads to the sky and roared. In an instant, the world was filled with the roars of dragons. One by one, the terrifying gods of the dragon race pounced down. While these were not their true forms were once the gods of the dragon clan. They were terrifying existences above the sage plane at the very least. Their wills had persisted and were reformed in the world. It could be said that they were not real gods, but it could also be said that they were not real gods. In short, they were very terrifying. Whoosh! A long black dragon pounced directly in front of him. It opened its bloody mouth, and an inexhaustible cold air condensed in it. It seemed as if it would transform into a mass of ice and swallow him whole. Poochie! The thunder dragon halberd directly pierced through the black dragon, turning it into a blood mist in the air. Fresh blood spurted out. Yi Shiwen's expression was ice-cold, and there was not the slightest trace of emotion on his face. It was as if he had just casually stepped on an ant. He could feel the power of this black dragon, but its true strength was not that terrifying. It was just a drop of blood essence. It was not the true form, so the difference was huge. However, this was only one of them. More and more ferocious dragons rushed over. One after another, the dragon gods rose from the ground and rushed out of the ancestral dragon's Tao diagram. They roared and rushed over to kill Yi Shiwen. Poochie! 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 Every time the sound of iron breaking flesh was heard, a dragon god was beheaded by Yi Shiwen. Just looking at this scene, it seemed as if it was the end of the world. A person could actually kill the dragon gods one by one. It was a completely incredible scene. However, it would be extremely difficult for Yi Shiwen to kill these dragon gods even if that was the case. Because after being killed by Yi Shiwen, these dragon gods immediately condensed again and pounced over. There was no end to them. There was no end to them. But in the sky, the ancestral dragon Tao diagram was turning into a world, and it was crushing down bit by bit. These dragon gods were repeating the cycle, and it was impossible to kill them all. Yi Shiwen finally stopped killing. Thunder dragons automatically formed around his body and pounced towards those dragon gods. He fought with those dragon gods in the sky. The scene looked incomparably shocking. Countless giant dragons were killing each other. This was a spectacular scene that could not be seen at any time. And at this moment, Yi Shiwen put his hands together, and it seemed like he was forming some kind of seal. Everyone was watching. One should know that the ancestral dragon Tao diagram that Ao Chaozong brought out was too terrifying. It was just suppressing bit by bit, and it could crush everyone and sweep away all his opponents. Just what kind of trump card was Yi Shiwen preparing to deal with the ancestral dragon Tao diagram? Everyone was very curious. One should know that this was not something that could be dealt with by any ordinary move. Behind him, countless thunder and lightning were condensing, and they quickly formed the shape of a terrifying cannon. It was pointed at the ancestral dragon Tao diagram that was directly suppressing down. Ao Chaozong, watch carefully. This is the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon that I've specially refined for you. Yi Shiwen let out a sinister roar. This cannon had instantly drained all the magic power in his body, and it was then condensed into the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon, turning into an extremely terrifying energy that could pierce through the sky. Rumble! A terrifying sound of thunder rang out, and the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon shot out, crashing into the ancestral dragon Tao diagram. The ancestral dragon Tao diagram reacted immediately, and it instantly formed countless evil dragons to directly resist the cannon. Everyone only saw that in an instant, there seemed to be no other color between the heavens and the earth. All the light between the heavens and the earth had been snatched away, and only endless energy could be seen colliding. Many gods' expressions changed as they looked at this scene. What kind of magic is this? How can it be so terrifying? It can actually resist the ancestral dragon Tao diagram. I've seen many Thunder Tao magic, but I've never seen such a terrifying one. Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon. What a domineering name, but it has the domineering strength to match its name. Under this cannon, even the sky will be pierced through. How terrifying! If everyone was shocked by the ancestral dragon Tao diagram before, then now, everyone was shocked by the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon. On the ancestral dragon Tao diagram, Ao Chaozong's face revealed an incredulous expression. This was his ultimate skill, and he originally wanted to use it against Ji Renwang. Who would have thought that the gap between them would be so huge? He didn't even have the chance to use it from the beginning to the end, and he was defeated by Ji Renwang. Now, it should have been more than enough to suppress Yi Shiwen. He didn't believe that there was any magic that could be compared to the ancestral dragon Dao diagram. But whether or not he believed it, it still happened now. The Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon directly pierced through the entire ancestral dragon Dao diagram, and the countless dragon gods drawn on it collapsed one by one in front of everyone. In the face of this terrifying power, they completely collapsed. It directly rushed towards the ancestral dragon in the middle of the diagram. The ancestral dragon in the diagram suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the incoming Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon with ice-cold eyes. He opened his mouth and roared out countless dragon flames to confront the incoming Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon. Rumble! More than 10 seconds passed, and the collision still continued. It was only a few seconds, and it seemed very short, but in the eyes of everyone, it was as long as a century. Hee, do you think this is all? Ao Chaozong, take a good look. This is the second stage attack that I've developed based on the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon. It's not a complete success, but it's enough to give you a big surprise. Yi Shiwen was constantly panting. He was constantly operating the observing person scripture and phoenix regeneration technique to recover. He didn't dare to use them blatantly because he had to hide his identity. His strength was also recovering at an astonishing speed, and his magic power was constantly growing. This time, his magic power had been exhausted, and it made him feel as if his magic power had reached a new level. This was an extreme experience. Just when everyone thought that such a confrontation would continue like this, the thunder shockwave that was originally spat out suddenly burst out in an astonishing manner. Boom! The power of the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon instantly rose to a new level. All the power condensed together and rushed out. Bang! Ancestral Graygon, who was initially in a stalemate with the lightning bolt, was instantly defeated. His massive body was split into two at the waist. Next, an even more massive lightning bolt continued to charge over and obliterated his entire body, turning him into a pile of scraps. And this ancestral Dragon Dao diagram was the core of the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram. Now that it was blasted by the cannon, the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram naturally couldn't continue to be maintained, and all the strange phenomena collapsed on the spot. All that could be seen was a diagram floating in the sky, and the content of the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram was drawn on it. Damn it! Ao Chaozong was about to snatch the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram back. After all, it was only a rubbing version, and not the original, but it wasn't easy to make a rubbing of a diagram that contained supreme magical power. The materials needed to be selected from the best. Don't look down on it just because it was a piece of paper, but in fact, it was more valuable than an ordinary divine tool. In addition, the contents of the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon weren't many in the clan, and it was almost comparable to a top-grade divine tool. However, the remaining energy of the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon continued to blast towards him. He had no choice but to wave the iron halberd in his hand and split the thunder energy apart. Fortunately, after the obstruction of the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram, there wasn't much left of the remaining energy. Although it took some effort, it was successfully dispersed. However, when he wanted to retrieve the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram, he saw a scene that made his eyes pop out. A huge hand broke through the sky and directly grabbed the ancestral Dragon Dao diagram. Chapter 2477. Suddenly, a giant hand broke through the sky and snatched the ancestral Dragon's Dao discourse painting. The entire arena was sealed off by an array formation to prevent others from interfering. Even a king-ranked martial artist would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. However, this huge hand had managed to do it. There was no need to even think about it. It could only be Yi Shiwen. How dare you? Ao Chaozong roared and took a step forward. His entire body rushed out, but he was still a step too slow. He could only watch as Yi Shiwen kept the ancestral Dragon's Dao discourse painting in his pocket. His heart was bleeding. Although its power could not be compared to a supreme-grade divine weapon, its value was comparable. This trick was broken by Yi Shiwen, and even the ancestral dragon's Tao discourse diagram was taken away. It could be said that he had suffered a double loss. "I'm going to kill you," Ao Chaozong roared at Yi Shiwen. His eyes were filled with boundless murderous intent. This time, he was completely enraged by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had just kept the ancestral dragon's Tao discourse painting in his pocket. He had not looked at it yet. Even if it was unbearable, he knew that it was a valuable treasure. The key was whether he could decipher the martial arts in this painting. This move forced Yi Shiwen to use the Thunder Emperor Heavenly Cannon to defeat it. One could imagine how powerful it was. Of course, Yi Shiwen was more interested in the mark of the ancestral dragon's Tao discourse. If he could comprehend it for a long time, it would greatly benefit his cultivation. Although it could not compare to the original ancestral dragon's Tao discourse painting, it was enough. It was an unexpected gain. However, these benefits were for the future. Right now, he had to defeat Ao Chaozong first. Ancestral Dragon Seal. Ao Chaozong flipped his hand and formed a seal, slamming it down on Yi Shiwen. The Ancestral Dragon Seal transformed into a ferocious dragon that swooped down from the sky. The entire sky was covered by this huge dragon, entrenched in the ground. It was not Yi Shiwen's first time seeing the Ancestral Dragon Seal. He had seen it once when he fought against Ao Chaozong, but back then, it was just Ao Chaozong's clone. The Ancestral Dragon Seal that he was able to use back then paled in comparison to the one he was using now. When Ao Chaozong's power came down, it could be said to be able to flip the heavens and earth upside down. Its might was boundless. Yi Shiwen, on the other hand, remained motionless. Golden light shone brilliantly on his body. This was the first time that he had manifested other cultivation besides the cultivation of the Thunder Tao. He was like a golden Buddha walking in this world. Everywhere he went, he would enlighten the creatures of the land. He had supreme merits. This scene had thoroughly shocked the others. That was because this was the first time that Yi Shiwen had revealed any other cultivation besides the Thunder Tao magical power. Everyone was guessing if it was because he only cultivated lightning Tao divine abilities, which was why he was able to cultivate lightning Tao divine abilities to such an extent. This was the only way to explain everything. But now, it didn't seem like that was the case. He was still hiding his strength. He was definitely hiding his strength. It was not as simple as just the cultivation of the Thunder Tao. Yi Shiwen's magic power had yet to recover, which forced him to reveal some other cultivation. At this stage, even if his identity might be exposed, he couldn't care less. Yi Shiwen took a step forward. Then, the Thunder Battle Armor appeared outside his golden body and wrapped him inside it. He slapped his palm and clashed with the Ancestral Dragon Seal. The terrifying divine power shattered most of the space in an instant. Everything was dyed golden. At the same time, the power of the Thunder Tao turned into a shocking attack and clashed with the Ancestral Dragon Seal. Boom! There was a huge explosion. Yi Shiwen was forced to retreat. This was the first time he was at a disadvantage since he fought against Ao Chaozong. It was different from before when one was on the offensive and the other was on the defensive. At this moment, he really felt like he couldn't win. It's a pity. That Deadly Scholar's Thunder Emperor heaven-piercing cannon might be powerful, but it's obvious that it consumes a lot of energy. It's not as good as Ao Chaozong's. Although the Ancestral Dragon's Tao lecture diagram also consumes a lot of energy, he has a copy of it. That's enough to reduce the consumption by half. Usually, it's not enough to see anything, but at the crucial moment, it's enough to see the gap. I'm afraid this gap will only get bigger and bigger. Feng Nantian said with a sigh. Feng Nantian knew what his cultivation level was. He could see it clearly with just a glance. At this moment, everyone could also see that Yi Shiwen had consumed too much energy. That move just now might be shocking, but it should have consumed most of his energy. Yi Shiwen was gasping for breath. It was just as everyone had guessed. His martial power had yet to recover. If it wasn't for the fact that he had the tyrant body as a foundation, he would have been killed by Ao Chaozong's Ancestral Dragon Seal. Die! Ao Chaozong chased relentlessly and slammed down with another ancestral dragon seal. Yi Shiwen kept retreating and defending. It didn't take long before he was forced into a dead end. Oof. So what if you've taken my ancestral dragon's Tao lecture diagram? Once you die, everything will fall into my hands, Ao Chaozong said coldly. However, he suddenly realized that Yi Shiwen's aura had suddenly changed. It had suddenly risen by several levels. No, you were deliberately luring me to relax my attacks. Ao Chaozong immediately realized that he had fallen into Yi Shiwen's trap just now. Yi Shiwen had pretended to be exhausted to make Ao Chaozong believe that he would only need to consume a little bit of magic power to kill his opponent. But in reality, he was taking advantage of this period of time to recover. What was even more terrifying was that he had recovered to this extent in such a short time. Everyone finally reacted after being reminded by Ao Chaozong. What kind of trick did Yi Shiwen use? Let alone Ao Chaozong. Even they were also deceived, because they had never truly understood Yi Shiwen's bottom line. That was why they were deceived. The situation is about to turn, someone exclaimed. That's right. You've guessed correctly. Unfortunately, it's too late. The power of thunder on Yi Shiwen's body instantly turned into a sea of thunder. Terrifying power erupted in an instant. He immediately launched a counterattack. Although he had not recovered to his peak, he was not far from it. It did not affect his combat effectiveness. Your legend should end here. It's time to end. He took a step forward and swept the Thunder Dragon halberd in his hand to fight with Ao Chaozong. You've actually recovered to your peak. It was my mistake that gave you this opportunity. Unfortunately, it's useless. Unfortunately, I've also recovered to my peak when you've recovered, Ao Chaozong said in a tit-for-tat manner. He kept waving the halberd in his hand and clashing with Yi Shiwen. Terrifying dragon energy surged out of his body. He had also recovered to his peak. He was not at a disadvantage at all. He had also raised his cultivation level to the peak, and every strike could kill a powerful expert at the peak of the undead realm. At this level, he had truly cultivated to the peak of perfection. Unless he encountered a freak like Ji Rin Wang, he would be invincible. He was close to the Sage realm. He was only half a step away. Some of the characteristics that only belonged to the Sage realm had also appeared on his body. If I kill you today, my state of mind will improve, and I'll directly break into the Sage realm. So die. Ao Chaozong had already shaped Yi Shiwen as an unparalleled enemy in his mind. The advantage of doing so was that if he could kill Yi Shiwen, his mind would be liberated, and his spiritual cultivation would improve by leaps and bounds. However, on the other hand, if one couldn't kill Yi Shiwen, then this knot in one's heart would turn into a heart devil and devour one alive. This was a cultivation method with both advantages and disadvantages. So, no one would dare to act recklessly unless they were extremely confident. Do you really think you've got me? Yi Shiwen said coldly, not showing any signs of being at a disadvantage. Ao Chaozong's iron halberd shot through the air, shattering the sky. It truly turned into a long dragon. The iron halberd in his hand was forged from the spine of a powerful dragon god who had fallen. It was very terrifying. Some Sage Realm experts could not help but change their expressions when they saw that move. That was close to the Sage Realm. Just as this long dragon took to the skies, the surroundings instantly turned into a kingdom of the dragon tribe. Countless mystical dragons soared in the skies and lived within. That's a kingdom of dragons. A divine kingdom. It's a divine kingdom. Ao Chaozong actually used a divine kingdom. Someone exclaimed. It's really a divine kingdom that's about to take shape. Once his divine kingdom takes shape, it'll be really bad. I didn't expect his cultivation to have already reached this level. He was still hiding it before. It doesn't matter what abilities that deadly scholar has. No matter how strong he is, he won't be able to fight against the divine kingdom. That's right. The only thing that can fight against the Sage Realm divine kingdom is the divine kingdom itself. With that, no one was optimistic about Yi Shiwen's chances. The tables had turned, and Yi Shiwen had fallen from the upper hand to the lower hand. Let's wait and see what that deadly scholar is going to do. The moment the divine kingdom appeared, Yi Shiwen felt that his entire body was surrounded by endless God rule chains. He could not see it from the outside, but he could feel that it was a divine kingdom. Even if it was a divine kingdom that had yet to take shape, it still had the power to completely suppress someone at the pinnacle of the eternal realm. Divine kingdoms were different from realms. Realms were formed by the condensation of countless laws of the world. All of the laws were still the same as the world, but the emphasis was different. Some people cultivated the way of thunder, and the laws of thunder would be especially active. However, divine kingdoms were different. It was a place that was completely controlled by the divine master. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. This was not a legend. This was going to be tricky. Chapter 2478. So, this is your trump card? Yi Shiwen's expression was solemn. He was surrounded by countless divine laws. He opened his eye of redemption and discovered that the rules of the arena had been modified. He could do whatever he wanted. That was the most terrifying part. Whoosh! Whoosh! Thunder and lightning rained down from Yi Shiwen's body. He opened up his own domain of thunder and lightning and forcibly resisted against Yi Shiwen's divine kingdom. However, his domain of thunder and lightning could only cover a radius of 3 feet. The rest of the domain was completely compressed. The might of divine kingdom was too terrifying. If it was a fully formed divine kingdom, Yi Shiwen wouldn't even have the opportunity to open up his domain of thunder and lightning. It's useless. You can't shake off my divine kingdom, Ao Chaozong said coldly. The iron halberd in his hand burst into bursts of astonishing light. Yi Shiwen clearly saw that Ao Chaozong couldn't condense a divine kingdom by himself. It was likely that he borrowed the power of the iron halberd, just like how he used the ancestral dragon Dao diagram to condense a great magical power. However, it couldn't be helped. The Dragon Island had been passed down for countless years. It had all kinds of secret treasures and magical powers. This was something that others could only envy. Die! Ao Chaozong continued to expand his divine kingdom while attacking Yi Shiwen with his halberd. Everyone knew that he was truly angry. He wanted to crush Yi Shiwen to death with his supreme strength. Not only because Yi Shiwen had seized the ancestral dragon's Dao teaching diagram, but also because Ji Runwang had beaten him up. He wanted to clear his name and take back the honor that belonged to him. I want to form a divine kingdom. No one can stop me. No one. Ao Chaozong's spiritual power was surging. The iron halberd in his hand was emitting a powerful dragon's aura. It was like a powerful divine dragon that was about to be resurrected. Yi Shiwen kept retreating and resisting. The power of the divine kingdom was more terrifying than he had imagined. Even with his strength, he felt that it was difficult to resist. However, he didn't show any signs of fear, nor did he show any emotional fluctuations. His eyes were as calm as still water, without a single ripple. Within his body, the mysterious space was frantically analyzing a lot of information about this divine kingdom. This was a rare opportunity. Usually, when would a divine kingdom be presented to him so openly for him to comprehend? Although this was a very thrilling environment, it was indeed a rare opportunity. If it was a complete divine kingdom, he would have been defeated long ago. It would have been impossible for him to have the time to comprehend it. He kept retreating and defending. The entire scene was instantly under Ao Chaozong's control. I didn't expect Ao Chaozong to have such hidden strength. I couldn't tell just now. It seems like it's not that Ao Chaozong is weak, but Jiren Wang is too strong. The outcome of the battle should be decided now. No one can fight against a god nation unless they are an expert of the divine master realm. No, he actually has a flaw. Feng Nantian squinted his eyes and said, Ao Chaozong's biggest flaw is that his god kingdom is not condensed by himself. Instead, he relies on the dragon halberd in his hand. Just to maintain this god kingdom requires a huge amount of magic power. With his magic power, no matter how strong it is, he can't keep it up forever. Once it collapses, he will die. And that deadly scholar is probably waiting for this opportunity. It's just a matter of who can persist in the end. At this time, although the people outside didn't have the foresight of Feng Nantian, they gradually realized that something was wrong. Although Ao Chaozong's attacks were very fierce, Yi Shiwen was in a very difficult situation. Yi Shiwen was in a very difficult situation. It seemed as if he was a small boat that would be submerged in monstrous waves at any time. However, no matter how many attacks were launched, Yi Shiwen was always able to block all the attacks just in time. Although he was in a difficult situation, and many wounds had appeared on his body, but they were not fatal. Could it be that he is waiting for Ao Chaozong's spiritual power to be exhausted? That's right. This is his only chance. Some people with sharp eyes had already guessed some clues. Ao Chaozong was using the power of the entire Divine Kingdom to launch a surprise attack. Originally, his strength was on par with Yi Shiwen's, but he was able to beat Yi Shiwen, who was in peak condition. This was the best proof. However, he still lacked the last straw that broke the camel's back. Endless murderous intent burst out of Ao Chaozong's eyes. He quickly guessed Yi Shiwen's plan and said coldly, "You want to exhaust my spiritual power? Do you think that's possible? Don't even think about it." As he spoke, Ao Chaozong flipped his palm, and a golden fruit appeared. This fruit was shaped like a divine dragon, and it was about to break the seal and fly into the endless void at any time. Many people outside swallowed their saliva. Just by looking at its appearance, they could tell that it was not an ordinary treasure. Could it be the medicinal dragon fruit? Legend has it that only by soaking in endless dragon's blood can it condense into a treasure of heaven and earth. Holy sh*t, they even have such a rare fruit. The Dragon Island is really heaven-defying. Some people couldn't help but exclaim. To them, this kind of magical elixir was only seen in legends. Even Feng Nantian was a little envious. This medicinal dragon fruit's value was immeasurable. Ao Chaozong was indeed worthy of being a talent that the Dragon Island had spent a lot of effort to nurture. It could be said that he had produced all kinds of magical treasures. It should be the medicinal dragon fruit. If we have the support of the medicinal dragon fruit, this life-snatching scholar's plan will be completely in vain. Feng Nantian said with pity. As soon as he finished speaking, the medicinal dragon fruit in Ao Chaozong's hand flew up and circled above his head. Traces of medicinal power directly entered Ao Chaozong's body. He didn't even need to swallow it, and it quickly replenished the spiritual power in his body that had been exhausted. The effect of the medicinal dragon fruit was needless to say. With a medicinal dragon fruit by his side, he wouldn't have to worry about his spiritual power running out. Moreover, this medicinal dragon fruit had been preserved very well. Its roots were still intact, and it could be replanted. The consumed medicinal power could also be rapidly replenished. Its effect and value were limitless. With the replenishment of the medicinal dragon fruit, Ao Chaozong's attacks became even more unbridled. He had used all the big moves that he had been afraid of before, and Yi Shiwen found it even more difficult to resist. In the eyes of an outsider, it was a big question how long Yi Shiwen could resist. That life-snatching scholar has completely lost the ability to fight back. He can only hide at the edge of the arena and keep struggling to catch his breath. His physical body is truly terrifying. I've seen his physical body getting shattered by Ao Chaozong several times. However, it would reform in the blink of an eye. It's said that an Eternal Realm expert can recover as long as he has a single cell. However, that still requires time. I'm afraid that even an ordinary Eternal Realm expert at the peak wouldn't be able to achieve such a feat. A big shot from the ancient Phoenix realm couldn't help but sigh and say, "Indeed, that life-snatching scholar is very strong. He can definitely be considered as a peerless genius. He can contend against Ao Chaozong, who is at the peak of the Eternal Realm with a cultivation of the Eternal Realm intermediate stage. He should be proud of this achievement." Everyone wasn't a fool. If they had thought that Yi Shiwen had concealed his strength at the beginning and had only displayed the strength of the Eternal Realm intermediate stage, then they could clearly see that he was indeed at the Eternal Realm intermediate stage. Otherwise, he wouldn't have shown any signs of exploding in such a critical moment. If either of them were to suffer any damage, I'm afraid the powerful existences behind them wouldn't let it go so easily. The clash between the two geniuses will happen sooner or later. It's a pity that there's still a huge gap between Feng Zihao and those two. I thought that even if he couldn't be compared to the powerful existences like Ji Renwang, who dominated the Kerfurst Road, he would still be able to reign supreme among his peers. But now, it seems that he can't even be mentioned in the same breath as those two. The big shots of the ancient Phoenix realm didn't have any bias towards those two. After all, they weren't from their clan. Moreover, the one who emerged victorious was very likely to become the son-in-law of their clan. At this time, Yi Shiwen was constantly resisting. He was constantly blasted away by the eruption of Ao Chaozong. He looked to be in a complete mess. Ao Chaozong was indeed a formidable opponent. In fact, he was more terrifying than any of the formidable opponents that Yi Shiwen had encountered so far. He was able to condense a divine nation at the undead realm. Even if he had the help of a divine tool, it was still very astonishing. After such an intense collision, his Thunder Dragon halberd was already full of cracks. The Thunder Dragon halberd was only refined by him on the spot. Compared to the iron halberd in Ao Chaozong's hand, there was a clear gap. It was very close to a top-grade divine tool. At this rate, it was inevitable that the halberd would directly collapse. However, although he was in such a mess, the effect was excellent. He had a fundamental breakthrough in his understanding of the divine nation. Originally, he only had a superficial understanding of the nature of the divine nation. He could only understand it from the ancient books. But now, he had a deep and clear understanding of it. He was no longer confused about what the divine nation was. When he reached this stage in the future, condensing a divine nation that belonged to him would only be a matter of course. Even the universe, composed of countless galaxies within his body, was undergoing a transformation. This was the way that Yi Shiwen deduced some changes in the divine nation. He was constantly transforming the universe of galaxies within his body into a vast divine nation. Although it was just the beginning, it was already an extremely good start. But this is as far as it goes. Yi Shiwen deflected an attack from Ao Chaozong. The aura on his body was expanding, although he wanted to continue comprehending it so that it would be easier for him to condense a divine nation in the future. Time waited for no man. If he continued to passively take a beating like this, he would be beaten to death. Ao Chaozong's attack was like a falling mountain. He had already comprehended the most crucial part. All that was left was to deduce the other parts in preparation for him to condense a divine nation. "I'll crush your divine nation in one move," Yi Shiwen shouted. Something came out of his body. Chapter 2479. Everyone was stunned. Yi Shiwen actually said that he could destroy Ao Chaozong's divine kingdom with a single move? How was that possible? Destroying a divine kingdom with a single move? To them, this was no different from a legend. How could Yi Shiwen do it? "Why don't you give it a try then?" Ao Chaozong roared. At first, he was shocked, but then he threw that uneasy feeling to the back of his mind. What a joke. If a divine kingdom could be destroyed so easily, it would not have become a powerful weapon for divine masters to suppress other gods below the divine master level. Something that no one could see clearly came out of Yi Shiwen's body. Vaguely, everyone could only see a giant decapitated dragon descending from the sky, crashing into Ao Chaozong's divine kingdom. As if triggering a chemical reaction, Ao Chaozong's divine kingdom, which was originally extremely tyrannical, began to crumble inch by inch in front of everyone. The dragon soul within the iron halberd that was about to awaken seemed to have encountered something horrifying and instantly retracted. This divine kingdom was sustained by the iron halberd itself. Now that the dragon soul within the iron halberd was scared away, the entire divine kingdom completely crumbled in an instant. Everyone was stunned. They had never thought that things would turn out like this. Ao Chaozong was completely taken aback. He had never imagined that his god kingdom would actually shatter, and that it would shatter in an instant. It wasn't just a little bit, but all of it in an instant. What kind of technique is that? He could not even see clearly what was happening. All he felt was a sense of palpitation that came from the bottom of his heart, shrouding his mind in an instant. It was as if he had met the natural enemy of his species. This was unprecedented. There were many species that dared to eat dragons, such as the golden divine hoe and the golden winged roc. However, those who dared to do so were the experts of their species. On the other hand, if the experts of the dragon race wanted to take revenge, they could also kill each other. It could only be considered as a mutual predator and not a natural enemy. At the dragon race's level, there were almost no other natural enemies, and it was impossible for any creature to become the dragon race's natural enemy. However, he had such a feeling in his heart, and it was definitely not an illusion. However, he did not have time to see clearly. There was a mysterious fluctuation hidden on the decapitated dragon's body, isolating everyone from prying eyes. Whoosh! While Ao Chaozong was still in a daze, Yi Shiwen, who had destroyed the divine kingdom in an instant, had already arrived in front of him. He opened his palm, and countless lightning bolts condensed, instantly transforming into a lightning spear that pierced into Ao Chaozong's chest. Roar! With a deafening roar, Ao Chaozong's chest was pierced through, and his entire body was sent flying, leaving a trail of blood in the air. He had suffered serious injuries in this fight, and the medicinal dragon fruit on his head hadn't even had the time to fly out when it was grabbed by Yi Shiwen. He was thoroughly enraged. Although undead realm experts were known to be able to resurrect as long as a single cell still existed, and their recovery ability was extremely powerful, but in fact, the difficulty of recovery was different depending on the location of the injury. His entire heart was stabbed into minced meat by Yi Shiwen's spear, and the damage was so great that only his head exploded. What is that thing in his hand? It can actually destroy a divine kingdom? Everyone was shocked. The thing in Yi Shiwen's hand was just too mysterious, especially those who didn't have high hopes for Yi Shiwen. They felt like they had been slapped in the face. Do you think you still have the chance? The power of lightning continued to erupt from Yi Shiwen's body, and another lightning spear was formed, blasting towards Ao Chaozong. Boom! Ao Chaozong's entire body was blasted away again. Both of his trump cards had been destroyed by Yi Shiwen. He had just stood up and was about to counterattack when the terrifying lightning in the sky erupted once again. It was none other than the Thunder Emperor's sky-piercing cannon. Crackle! Countless lightning bolts crackled, and in an instant, the endless power of lightning came crashing down, directly blasting Ao Chaozong's body. Kaboom! The terrifying power blasted half of Ao Chaozong's body off, and he looked extremely miserable. He didn't even have time to resist or react, and this time he was severely injured again. Ao Chaozong retreated step by step, and his face revealed a look of horror. He no longer had the slightest bit of arrogance, nor did he have the demeanor of a peerless character. This was not the case even when he was fighting against Ji Renwang. When he was fighting against Ji Renwang, even if he was defeated, he would still think that his cultivation was far inferior to his opponent. Most importantly, he hadn't used his trump cards yet, and it was still unknown who would emerge victorious if they were to fight in the same realm in the future. But now his opponent's cultivation was lower than his, and yet he had consecutively destroyed 2 of his trump cards. He suffered heavy losses and suffered a double loss. This had cast a shadow on his invincible heart. He no longer had the same invincible confidence he had in the beginning. Didn't you want to kill me? Didn't you want to challenge Ji Renwang? Where's your confidence? Yi Shiwen took a step forward and rushed towards him. The medicine dragon fruit had been tamed by him and was now under his control. In a short time, he had recovered more than half of his spiritual power and launched another attack. He directly blasted a punch, and the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Puff! Ao Chaozong was hit by the punch, and the flesh that he had recovered with great difficulty cracked again. His whole body was sent flying, and blood sprayed everywhere in the sky. It's over. Ao Chaozong is really finished this time. Even the most reluctant person had to admit it. This deadly scholar is too terrifying. He can even destroy a divine nation. His means are more terrifying than we thought. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. This was completely different from when his clone was defeated. Previously, it was only his clone that was defeated, and it did not affect his invincible heart. But now that his real body was defeated, it had completely affected his invincible heart, and he felt despair. You can't accept this? You don't need to struggle anymore. You're destined to be a loser, and you can't beat me. Yi Shiwen attacked again, and his fist blasted Ao Chaozong, who was still flying in midair, directly to the ground. A deep crack was left on the indestructible arena, and it looked extremely ferocious. Not only did he want to defeat Ao Chaozong, but more importantly, he wanted to truly crush his confidence and destroy his room for future growth. Otherwise, if such a person passed this stage, he would become a great enemy. Being merciful to one's enemy was the greatest cruelty to oneself. How could Yi Shiwen not understand this principle? No, I can't let him continue. Feng Nantian finally decided to intervene. Ao Chaozong had lost any chance of turning the tables, but he was not willing to crush Ao Chaozong's confidence. At least not in the ancient Phoenix realm, or else he would not be able to answer to Dragon Island. He directly broke the void, grabbed Ao Chaozong, and sent him out. Yi Shiwen did not intervene. In fact, it was useless for him to intervene. A king-rank martial artist was not someone he could interfere with right now. But it was enough. He had gained a lot from this battle. The ancestral dragon's Taoist diagram and the medicine dragon fruit were all on the surface. Most importantly, he had gained an earth-shattering understanding of the structure of the god nation. He had gained a lot from this battle. What he used just now was the broken dragon stone. According to legend, it was a mysterious instrument that the dragon race hated the most, and it had a great restraining effect on the dragon race. Now that he had tested it, the broken dragon stone broke Ao Chaozong's god nation in almost an instant. If it was not Ao Chaozong but Jiren Wang, he would not have chosen to use the broken dragon stone. It would have been safer to use the 10,000 technique roulette. Everything was under his control, and he had finally won. For this victory, he had put in a lot of effort and calculated a lot. The final winner of the Groom Search contest has been decided. He's none other than the life-stealing scholar from the martial sect. Feng Nanshan's majestic voice had just finished speaking when he saw the figure of the deadly scholar slowly changing in the center of the arena. It turned into Yi Shiwen. Feng Nanshan's eyes widened, and boundless anger rushed to his head. He had been tricked. He had been tricked. He felt his vision go black, and he felt dizzy. He had been tricked by someone, and by the same person at that. He had tried everything he could think of to block off all threats, and yet he had still succeeded. He had become the champion. At this moment, he finally knew where the uneasiness in his heart had come from. It turned out that he had miscalculated. This guy had disguised himself as someone else. Most importantly, he had not realized it at all. It was a complete humiliation, and he had been fooled by someone else. He had opened his transcendence eyes to look at the real bodies of everyone in the top 10, and he had not seen anything wrong with them, including this so-called deadly scholar. In other words, everyone had misjudged this deadly scholar. Everyone had thought that he was just a so-called genius that the martial sect had groomed. They had not expected him to be Yi Shiwen in disguise. Be it that suspicious Kuan Peng or Yi Wudi, they were all pretenses. They were all targets to attract everyone's attention. Thinking of this, he had the urge to vomit blood. Of course, Yi Shiwen had not colluded with Yi Wudi. However, from Feng Nanshan's point of view, Yi Shiwen and Yi Wudi had colluded long ago. One was to attract attention, and the other was to act in the dark. Their cooperation was flawless, and they had played everyone. It was not just Feng Nantian. Everyone was in an uproar. Chapter 2480. Who was that? Could it be the original identity of the deadly scholar? Someone was stunned. He pointed at Yi Shiwen's main body and said, "Not everyone knew about Yi Shiwen's main body. Oh my god, it's Yi Shiwen. My god, the deadly scholar is Yi Shiwen." Yi Shiwen? What? He's that Yi Shiwen. Everyone was in an uproar. They were completely dumbfounded. One must know that many people had been discussing whether Yi Shiwen would come or not. But they hadn't seen Yi Shiwen appear even when the martial arts competition had begun. They were very disappointed, and some of them had even said a lot of strange words. This was like giving them a hard slap in the face, making them see stars. Oh my God, how did Yi Shiwen become so powerful in just 100 years? Someone had seen Yi Shiwen fight 100 years ago. Although Yi Shiwen had already amazed many people back then, it was only amazing. It was far from enough to shock everyone. Now that he had made consecutive breakthroughs, even Ao Chaozong, who was at the peak of the undead realm, was no match for him and was beaten up like a dog. It could be said that the legends about Yi Shiwen were merely legends. However, everyone had witnessed his strength today. There was no rumor that Yi Shiwen's cultivation in the way of lightning has been raised to such a shocking level. In other words, in order to hide his identity, Yi Shiwen could not use many of his original skills. He did not use his full strength at all, but even so, he still beat Ao Chaozong up. This is completely unimaginable. Thinking of this, the crowd was even more shocked. He did not use his full strength, but he already defeated Ao Chaozong. Wouldn't it be even more terrifying if he used his full strength? They couldn't imagine how tyrannical Yi Shiwen would be if he were to use all of his means at his disposal. It really is him. Yi Wudi was originally very depressed, regretting not being able to stop this in the end. He was even thinking of ways to ruin it. He did not expect that the deadly scholar who won in the end was actually Yi Shiwen in disguise. I said he was really strange, very strange, just as I expected, Yi Wudi said while rubbing his chin. He felt very strange just now because the sentence was too smooth. His words were actually what Yi Shiwen had unintentionally instilled in him back then. But after not seeing him for so many years, he has become even stronger. As expected of a monster, Yi Wudi said, although Yi Shiwen always envied him. In fact, he was secretly shocked by Yi Shiwen. He was not a normal person at all. It was impossible for a normal human to reach this stage, especially in such a short period of time. With his inheritance, he could only be described as a monster. Hey, if that's the case, you should have known about it long ago. Why didn't you inform me? Yi Wudi looked at Kuan Peng beside him. At that moment, Kuan Peng had already transformed to the height of a human, but it was still in its original form. If he doesn't want me to say it, I won't say it either, Kuan Peng said with a mischievous smile. He recognized Yi Wudi. Otherwise, ordinary people wouldn't dare to stand next to him. There's going to be a good show. Feng Nantian knows that he has been fooled again. I'm afraid he's going to explode. Huh? Yi Wudi laughed loudly, as if he was going to watch a joke. At that moment, not only Yi Wudi, but everyone also realized this. If it was only the deadly scholar, perhaps Feng Nantian would be happy to accept it. But what about Yi Shiwen? Yi Shiwen, who had fought against him several times, was probably not on his list of people he would approve of. Moreover, this time, he had been fooled by Yi Shiwen in front of everyone. No one could tell that the deadly scholar was actually Yi Shiwen. One could imagine how well he had hidden it. Everyone looked at Feng Nantian, including Yi Shiwen, who was on the distant cloud platform. They were all anxiously waiting for Feng Nantian's attitude. The initiative was not in his hands. Once again, he deeply felt his powerlessness. If he was already a king-level expert, he could directly take Hua Minghan away. The winner is Hidden Valley's Yi Shiwen. Feng Nantian's voice came from the void. Many people had already guessed that Feng Nantian would not go back on his words in front of everyone. Otherwise, the ancient Phoenix realm would not have any credibility to speak of. In particular, as the new clan leader of the Phoenix clan, his prestige would suffer a heavy blow. However, he did not do anything to make things difficult for Yi Shiwen. Instead, he directly acknowledged Yi Shiwen. This also surprised many people. Many big shots of the ancient Phoenix realm also looked at Feng Nantian in surprise. Everyone knew how resolute he had been in opposing Yi Shiwen previously. Could it be that he was really going to compromise and accept Yi Shiwen for the sake of his so-called reputation? Feng Nantian stood up, turned around, and walked towards the depths of the void. Although he is not the most suitable candidate in my mind, since he has come this far, what's wrong with giving him a chance? On the thrones, many big shots looked at each other in dismay. This was because they understood that Feng Nantian did not like Yi Shiwen very much. However, he had already changed his initial opinion in his heart. Perhaps Yi Shiwen becoming the husband of the heavenly phoenix girl wasn't a bad thing for the ancient phoenix realm. Looking at his completely disappearing silhouette, a big shot slowly said, "Although I don't like his overbearing style, I have to admit that he is perhaps using another method to protect the ancient phoenix realm." Many big shots couldn't help but nod in a dignified manner. Feng Nantian was different from the Phoenix King, who was loved and respected by everyone. Feng Nantian's way of doing things was overbearing. He would do anything to achieve his goals. One used virtue to win over others, while the other used force to suppress others. They had two completely different styles. Many people in the ancient Phoenix realm had different opinions about Feng Nantian's way of doing things. They weren't very convinced. Even now, many people didn't approve of his methods. However, they couldn't help but admit that he might have selfish motives. However, he was also using his own methods to protect this ancient race that had been passed down since ancient times. At this moment, everyone outside heard Feng Nantian personally admitting Yi Shiwen's identity. Everything had gone so smoothly. It was completely different from what everyone had expected. At first, everyone had thought that they would have to go through a confrontation. However, they hadn't expected Feng Nantian to give in so easily. Why did Feng Nantian give in so easily? Yi Shiwen was also somewhat puzzled. He muttered, "But it's finally over no matter what. Meng Han, I come to find you." That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.